It's your boy Yuckmouth. Your boy, so I'm hitting you out with more videos. So I got you covered.
What's up, everybody? Long
This
time
is
no
fair
speak.
use. We're
I'm
asking the
trying
question
to
why black women love thugs.
get myself together to start back making videos, but I made one and then I just wasn't ready. Um, so now I'm ready to share with you the reason why. Last month my mom died, and just kind of been in a funk. I guess understandably so. It's been a while. My dad died in '94. So, I kind of got used to just having one parent. And, it was very sudden. I mean, it wasn't like, just one of them things, I guess. So, to make the long story short, make sure that you appreciate the people around you that you love and tell them, you know, let them know why. Don't wait. Because, the time that you're waiting, you may not get that time. So I just wanted to say that part, and then I will be back in a second, a minute or two, with the actual video.
It's your boy Yuckmouth. I always wondered why the women choose thugs. You got so many good brothers out there looking for good women, black women out. But then we gotta wait until you get your shit together, until we feel like, or you feel like you ready. You come with all that baggage. So the question is, why do black women love thugs?
Okay. Um, Even though I wasn't making videos, that didn't mean I wasn't, listening to some. I happened to hear, I was sent some links by people to listen to some videos that were ranting and raving about that black women love thug shit. I'm like, will y'all give it a rest? We already went over this, but I could see that maybe they didn't understand it. Plus, I have another avenue to help explain it. And what they don't understand is, this mysterious thug that they all like to talk about, and in their minds, this thug is a guy who is violent and, the jailbird in and out of jail type and going to kill folks at the drop of a dime and, always packing, always fighting and arguing and this and that. Few women, especially adult women with responsibilities in their lives, are looking for that. Now, I do admit there are some women like that. And, they're just like hood rats. I don't know what else to say. They would, of course, be perfectly matched with a guy like that. So there's really nothing for us to say. There's no reason for us to complain about those women because you will never be talking to those women. That's not for you. They're going to go over to the guys who match them, okay? So that's a wash. So we don't even talk about them. What they're concerned about, though, are the women who they consider to be, like the average woman. She went to college, she got a pretty good job, and this and that. And they don't understand why those women would prefer to be with guys who are more, street-like or got more of an edge than they do. Why those women don't want a, quote, good black man. I will tell you why. Good black men are boring as fuck. Okay, that's why nobody wants you. Now that half of you look ugly, you told you don't take care of your bodies, and you got them like hot dog things going on in the back of your neck. That's not cute. Your face is, bug is not on hit, and your body's all pudgy and shit. So y'all need to take care of that and put yourselves in a physically appealing position where a woman would be sexually attracted to you, because that's the bottom line. There's two things that women are looking for primarily. I mean, every woman has her list, but if you have these two things working for you, you pretty much, have a chance. One, you got to have some heat, okay? All women like a nice body. Now, some women like, the more, those muscle head types, and some women like the more trim but still muscular guy. That's me. My cousin likes the, bigger dudes. Although she did marry a guy who's like more the build that I like, but I don't like him like that. He's too skinny for me. Nice guy, but too skinny. So, okay, so she has to be physically and sexually attracted to you. Let's just break it down. Now, what that is going to vary from woman to woman. We don't all find everything the same, but I can tell you, if you're too skinny or you're too fat, you really lower your chances. Okay, so try to be somewhere in the middle where you look nice in your clothes, you look nice with your shirt off. You got some cuts. I mean, you don't have to be like spend hours in the gym every week, but you should have some defined musculature so that when you take off your shirt, you look like a dude. Okay, she don't want you to have like moves and not from the back not be able to tell who's the woman. Okay, she wants you to be, have your shit tight. Okay, so that's one. So if you have the physical going on, okay, that elevates you a lot above a lot of these, quote, good black men, geeky dudes. The second thing that you absolutely must have, and this is why women like the quote thug types that you guys like to talk about, they're looking for a man with confidence. I keep saying this, I don't know how many times I can say this. Y'all have low self-esteem. Instead of like getting your minds right, you want to sit around making videos whining on YouTube about why women don't want you. I keep remember that video where the dude it was called like, I've been wrote off. I will never forget this shit as long as I live. I still laugh at that. But it's like, that is just the epitome of a pity party, low self-esteem, no confidence having dude. No woman is going to want you. It's like, we need you to be able to come with it. You got to have some conversation. You have to have some wit. You have to have the ability and the willingness to step up. Okay, you have to show her that you're a man. Okay, and then you sitting around crying and whining like that and complaining all the time. That's like a little bitch. Nobody wants a man, a man like that. Ooh, I should have brought some water. So, I think it's very important that you guys, understand that. So when a woman, you saying what a woman wants is a thug. Like I said, a few women, but those are fringe elements. The average woman that you're interested in wants a guy that has confidence and who projects that he does. Okay, he has to have some kind of, presentation about himself, some kind of level of self-esteem, where she feels that he can stand up for himself, that if any shit jumps off, he's going to be able to handle it. It may not be with fists. He may be handled it by calling his attorney. You know what I mean? But whatever it is, she's got the confidence that he's gonna make some shit happen, and he's not gonna be no little punk about it, and he's not gonna let nobody run over him. So, like I said, whether he calls up greed on them, or whether his boys roll in, or whether he jumps up and pulls out his gat, or whether he calls his attorney, whatever way he handles it, she knows that he's going to handle it. Okay, so everybody's not gonna handle it the same. I think that's the main thing. They don't get that part. So the mysterious thug. I mean, there are women. I remember reading some cases. These girls had to get pardons by Obama, and I think Bill Clinton got some of them out. They got caught up in stupid shit where they had these boyfriends, and the boyfriends were, dealing drugs and doing shit that they shouldn't be doing, and then they want to give the girl the drugs to hold, or because they feel like she won't get the time that they would get because they have priors or whatever. I'm not an advocate of dating a jailbird like I have in several videos. This convict stuff, that's not for you. That's not for you. Unless that is you, then of course it's another good match. But, your average woman has not been in prison and, or jail, and she's not looking to get with anybody who's affiliated like that. So you would stay away from guys that, have that kind of background. But that doesn't mean that she doesn't still want a guy that has, an edge to him, who's, I don't know, it's hard to really describe how these guys carry themselves in the world. They hold their head up high. They look people in the eye. When they shake a man's hand, it's not this limp little, kind of handshake, it's like some power to it. You know, they got the smile of welcoming. They have conversation. You don't have to worry about taking a place, you know, him like embarrassing you saying something stupid, because the dude knows how to roll. He knows how to interact with people. He has social skills. He might not be the most educated man, but he still reads. He's still smart. He still knows stuff. Okay. And I think a lot of times the guys who, you know, have been to college and, you know, feel themselves to be so successful have their, you know, nose stuck up in the air about guys like this that I'm talking about. They may not be as educated as you, but that doesn't mean that their IQ is not higher than yours. So everything that you know, they can learn it too and probably could do it better. So don't be, you know, so high and mighty about what you know, what you think about the women, the men that women choose, because it's not you. You ain't for everybody. Just like every woman, you know, you're not gonna be interested in every woman. No woman owes you time and attention or a date, her number, a smile, or hello, nothing. She doesn't owe you anything. But, you know, the number one thing I think that a lot of guys just really don't understand is, just like you want a woman that you're physically attracted to, we want a man that's the same way. If you don't do it for her, go and find somebody who you do it for, because it's not going to be every woman. Every woman's not going to be interested in you, and that's just something you're just going to have to accept. But, you know, this thing, stop crying about these thugs. Understand that a woman is looking for a man that exudes confidence and who, you know, is in control of himself as he rolls through the world. Stop trying to put all the other guys down just because they're not like you. You know, don't, it's just stupid, because it makes you sound like a little whining bitch when you do that. And then, like I said, you got to have something. You got to have something about yourself that will make you be attractive to women. I mean, you have to work on this. And then in the next video, I'm going to talk about some theories presented by this guy about why women choose certain men and why they get rid of them. That should be very interesting. So I'm going to try to make these two quick little videos. I got to adjust my lighting. It's getting so dark early. I'm just looking like a Halloween costume or something. I'll talk to you guys in a minute. Now that you've seen some of the grade A content that the Depsterism channel offers, please become a subscriber. Just click the subscribe button down below. Then you'll see a little bell. Click that after, and then you'll be able to get notifications sent directly to your cell phone of when I post new content. You can be one of the very first people to review the new videos, like them, comment them on them, and share them. We like you to do all of those things to help the channel grow. I appreciate your support, so become a subscriber. Tell your friends.
Hi guys again. Can't wait for y'all to come in on this one, because somebody actually sponsored this video, and I'm sure there will be some black women who are just going to be like, oh my god, why would you do this? How could you? And all that crap. And I just want you to understand that I got y'all's back. You know, I got this. We're going to be all right. You know, we're going to be okay. So let me find the person that sponsored this video so that I can shout out his name. And if anybody else is interested in me talking on a topic that you feel is touchy and you want to drop some dimes or some dollars or whatever for me to do it, you know, let me know. The name of this person, his screen name is, and I quote, Finesse the Plug. Bless your heart. He donated for this video to be done. And this video pretty much stems from me asking the question of why black men date white women. And more specifically, it wasn't just that I was asking. I merely was asking the question of why you consistently go for women who keep causing you to become enthralled in something that costs you your livelihood. And oftentimes you see that happening in interracial relationships where there is a black man with a non-black woman. So, to me, I feel like the question is a little bit deflective because we weren't talking about black women dating thugs. We weren't talking about black women dating interracially. We specifically were talking about the topic at hand, which was why black men date these non-black women. So, I plan to make this video. I'm going to give a little bit of experience about my background doing this and why I believe there are other black women who do it. I, in a way, feel as though I am dumbing myself down even touching on this because I feel like it's kind of the same narrative to me with the black on black crime thing, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. Hey, Melanated Will Be. Hey, Dave. Hey, the real Aaron Collins. Hey, Boo. Why do thugs exist? Exactly, Emily, and that's a very good question. I've been saying this good one. Hi, Bruno Butterfly. Hey, Cap PY2. Hey, hi. Well, first of all, for the people that's in the chat, do you feel as though there is a high amount Will the Thrill? Hi, Will. Hey, Bay. Hey. Do you guys feel as though there is a high amount? I would say, is there an astronomical amount of black women who you feel as though that are actually and purposely trying to date thugs? Do you think that the average black woman enjoys being in a relationship with a person who has a dangerous lifestyle? That's a question that I seriously ask because I often feel as though that this is kind of one of those false narratives that is kind of used to taint the black woman's image to make it seem as though we're just, inherently savage-minded women who don't know how to choose good men. And I'm definitely going to debunk all that. Hey, Justin Hadley. I used to like a thug like Bad Boys when I was younger as a fantasy, but as I got older, I became more selective of men I associate with. Okay. No, it's a mental state. Exactly, Emily. Hey, Aaron Collins. I'm doing good today. I'm doing good. I'm going to be going out of town soon, so I'm in a good mood about that. Now, here's my thing about the whole black women dating thugs and why we're addicted to it and all that. I really don't feel as though this is a black woman thing. I think that you have to take into account certain periods of a female's life that she's going to go through when she's trying to figure herself out. Now, when you're a younger female, now this has happened to me. I definitely wouldn't say that I went through a rebellious stage. I just think I went through a stage of me trying to figure myself out. And I think that happens a lot with a female when she's trying to figure herself out. Hey there, Rottweiler. Hey, boo. When a female is trying to figure herself out in terms of dating, right? And she doesn't have a environment in which she has any examples of what a stable man looks like. And in this case, a stable man would be a provider, a protector, a man that has goals, a man that is family oriented, a man that's educated, a man who is selfless, a man who's monogamous, etc., etc. If you don't have those examples in your household, you're going to go searching for it, and you're almost going to be placed in instances where you're trying to force a man to break out of that habit or that sort of poor status that he's currently in this case being a thug. If you see this person and you don't come from a home where you see that on the regular as an example, and you encounter a man who doesn't exude those characteristics that you're thinking a man should have, you're going to accept any man in any condition, and you're going to have this deluded mindset of thinking that you can change that person to become the thing that you think that you need in a person. So here's what I mean by that. Now, when I was younger, okay, I come from a two-parent family household up until I was about 5 years old. So obviously there's a time space there in which, obviously, if I'm 5, I don't know anything about dating. I don't have any knowledge of dating. I don't have any knowledge or any awareness of what it is that I like. As I got older, I would say, like, a person I actually considered my boyfriend, it just makes me feel just like, ugh, was about like 18, okay? And at 18, of course, I didn't have any experience of, hey, legendary mother, hey, boo, hey. I didn't have any experience of dating any real guys like that. Like I was inexperienced. And he ended up being what you would call a thug. Now, he was light skinned, green, like all that idiotic, dumb ish that an inexperienced girl is going to think is like a quality. And I'm not saying him being light skinned was a quality, but he just had certain qualities about him. Like he was tatted up, he had snapbacks and all that. And me being an 18-year-old, I thought that meant something. Like I wasn't thinking about, okay, this man needs to be making this much per year. He needs to be making sure he has his own spot. He needs to make sure that he's driving this. He needs to make sure that this and this and that. I mean, the only thing that I didn't know that young is that I just wanted a guy with tattoos and a snapback, and I didn't want him to have any kids. That's all I knew. Now, this guy was definitely the thug type. Like I didn't really realize what it was that he was doing for a living. He wasn't intelligent by any means. He wasn't anything to bring home. And long story short, I ended up finding out that he was a pimp. And the instance that I found out that he was one, I stopped talking to him immediately. Like I didn't really know what I was getting myself into because I was young. Like I didn't have a dad to really show me like, these are the type of guys that you should not date. This. Like I had no example of that to see. And I thought he had like an edge to him or some sort of ways about him that wasn't right. But I just thought that, you know, that would be something that I would be able to like get him to change and bargain on. So like, once I discovered that he was a pimp or whatever, I instantly stopped talking to him because there was this experience that he and I had where this taught me about guys to never play hit with guys. Like, don't play hit, don't fight, like play fight, none of that. Because I sometimes feel as though like when a guy is play fighting you, he's trying to see like how far he can go to like test your strength a little bit. Now, I might be a little bit off with that, but that's just how I feel. That's why I don't play fight with him. You said 2-parent household up until I was 5. And at 5 years old, I don't feel like anybody has any knowledge of what sort of man that they would like. You're not even thinking about a man. You're thinking about playing or whatever. You're not thinking about playing with no guy. So anyways, there was this one instance that I knew how to stop talking to him, and I permanently stopped talking to him at that point, where he was like, I think first of all, this is a problem that I knew something wrong with. He didn't have a car, he didn't have his own spot or whatever. Me being 18, like nowadays I would cut a Negro off or something like that, if I was single, but back then I didn't think that was something abnormal because I was so used to the black men that I was seeing around not having cars, having females taking care of them. So I just thought I was falling in place. So one day I was dropping him off at his grandma's house, and he was giving me a hug, but then I just remember like he kind of was like roughing me up, kind of like hugging me in a way that I was feeling like he was overdoing it. So I kind of like pushed him off me a little bit. And like the way he hit me back, it was like it was very forceful to where I realized that like he basically like hit me back. And I didn't take it as like him just all out welling on me, but I knew it was something that if it ever escalated, like I would be in trouble. On top of me listening to him talk about the stories of him beating his mom in the bathtub, crazy stuff like that. So I knew I had to cut him off. Now, that was when I was 18, right? And after that experience, I realized that I didn't want to date a guy like that. Like, I didn't want to date a guy that's like ruggish like that, constantly in and out of jail, got a pass, has all these issues going on, has mom issues, has psychological issues. Like, I realized that early on. So why did I end up dating him? Well, he basically lived like down the street. Like, I wouldn't even say down the street. It was just like this road where I live, where if you go down that road, a store is like 7 minutes away, and he lived on that road. And it was he was basically so close to my house and so close relative to where I lived that it was just almost like kind of an easy way to just meet up with somebody that you consider yourself liking. My point is, do I think that Black women inherently want to date thugs? No. If you listen to the elements that I described, I come from a household not seeing what a man is supposed to be like. Like I didn't have any dating experience at that point. The person lived less than 10 minutes away from my house relative to where I lived, pretty close in distance. What does this mean? Do I think the average black woman wants to date a thug? No. You have to consider where this woman is living. Is she living in a good neighborhood or is she living in a bad neighborhood? Not every woman has the money to travel out of their living arrangements or their homes or wherever to search, which girls, you should never do that, but to look for a guy that you feel is a decent guy. You're going to end up dating who you live close by, who's in your environment, who you go to school with, and things like that. And I live in I hate to say a white neighborhood, but I do live in a white neighborhood. But the area that I had to go to that store, it's not even really a bad neighborhood. It's just where he lived because his grandmother lived over there. And honestly, if he wasn't with his grandmother at that time, I would have never met him. But that's what happens a lot with black women. It's like you go to school with these people, you see these people at the store, you're just in your everyday travels. They're in your environment and you end up dating them. This narrative that I hear some people paint where they're talking about black women dating thugs and you're just inherently effed up and you just like these thugs. It's kind of to me the same thing with the black on black crime thing. It's like they're trying to say that you're just inherently effed up mentally, that you just love to go and kill each other because you're so vicious. And it's like, no, if you live in an area that's poverty stricken, what other means do you have to make money? Obviously, you're going to have to rob somebody. You're going to have to steal from somebody. And obviously, if you don't want a witness present, you're going to have to kill them. That's kind of what happens with black women, and not to that severity. But what I mean is if you live close to this person, if you're in a neighborhood where you can't really get out the city or whatever or travel much, you're going to end up dating who you're around. Another thing that I want people to stop saying is just a black woman thing is this rebellious stage. Now, would I consider myself rebellious at 18? I wouldn't consider myself rebellious ever. I just think that I went through a phase where I was trying to figure myself out. And I think with this case, I think that all black women or all women in general go through a phase where you don't really know what a good guy is and you're trying to figure out on your own, like, what that looks like, what that feels like, based on whatever sort of influences that you have. It could be from the media, it could be from your peers, it could be from your family, whatever. You're trying to kind of mimic what that normalcy is. And sometimes you have to go through periods where you date the effed up guys, and you have to be able to be smart enough to not end up having a baby by them. Period. But I wouldn't consider that a black woman thing. I just figured that a lot of us, and we have to bring this back to the very men who like to say that, you know, it's just black women being effed up. But if you guys say that 70% of us come from single family parent homes, this is something that I keep telling you guys. How on earth do you say that this is the black woman's fault for the single motherhood epidemic just totally demolishing the black community, right? But why don't we ever place the blame, which it should be 50% of the blame needs to be placed on the men who are not present. And I told you guys in a past video, if you have a business and you just totally abandon that business that you started and you had a partner present and you just up and leave that business, you are also responsible if that business fails. If you helped to create the foundation of this business and you just up and leave it and abandon it and it doesn't work out, that's partially your fault. So what I mean is you guys have to kind of stop just saying it's just a black woman thing, like, oh yeah, you guys have the babies and it's up to you. No. 50% of that is also up to you. You can't absolve yourself of bringing a child into this world. You can't fully absolve yourself of responsibility if you did not participate in ensuring that that person had a successful life. You are that person's parent. You are responsible for that person being present on this earth. So you also have to be responsible for making sure that person lives out their life successfully. And if you don't participate in that, you don't get to comment on it. I mean, that's sick to me how a group of men, some of them can just be so deluded into thinking that it's okay for you to put on your women and then expect for them to be able to raise a community filled with men. And that's all a thug is. A thug, a lot of them, come from situations where it's like they have to create this artificial form of masculinity. How do you create when you haven't had a masculine figure to show you what that is? Like, that's something that you can't create on your own. You can try to go through life trying to exude what you feel that is, but if you don't actually have that in your home and you get an artificial form of it from your mother, who is a feminine being, how are you going to be a masculine alpha male in this society, especially as a Black man? Oh my God, like, that just totally devastates a child to not have the parent present in his life that is needed there to show him what it is to be a leader, a provider, a protector, a man that can raise a family, that can lead a family. Like, you don't have that present. How are you going to actually do that? So we just have to look at all things associated. And something that I also hear a lot is the whole, like, Black women just don't want good guys. It's not that we don't want good guys. To me, you have to kind of flip the table and look at the ladder. You have to look at it and realize that if there were a bounty of available, eligible bachelors who are educated and who have a stable job and who have no criminal record and no children and who have no responsibilities, is not in debt and all these different things, if that was in abundance, do you realistically think that Black women would go out of their way to pick the minority thug type of archetype, Black archetype in the Black community? Do you think that we would realistically do that? No, I don't think the majority of us would do that. And then you guys also have to look at yourselves, the one who, you guys basically promote this, because this is what you do a lot. This is what I hear a lot in the Black community. Anytime that a woman basically describes that she wants a man who has a certain amount of income, or who's in a certain tax bracket, or who can provide this or provide that, and he's educated and he's ambitious, all these other things, monogamous, the first thing that you guys do is you say, B, your standards is too high. B, you a gold digging thigh. B, I'm broke. B, you need to put money on the table. B, you need to do this. Like, that's the first thing that I hear with you guys. So do you guys want these women to choose better, or do you not want them to choose better? Because the men that you guys are promoting with us to be are the thug types. Anytime that you tell a woman her standards is too high and she's this and she's that, then what is the alternative of that? She has to go get the beat down thug types or the unmotivated types. And it's funny because I don't know if you guys saw this video, but I was watching this video from this relatively newer channel, and she was, oh yeah, thanks Cheryl, thanks Vega. Make sure you guys thumbs up. Make sure you like and subscribe and comment.
Hello, Solo TV.
Nate, Xanadal's Clutch. Shout out to Clutch. He's a brother I've interviewed. He wants you to explain why, quote unquote, Black queens will accept a white guy who's nerdy and lame, but will only respect the worst kind of Black man.
Oh, that's a good question. He said the Black queen will accept a white guy.
But yeah, hold on. Let me go back up to the question so you can see it. They have Nate explain why, quote unquote, Black queens will accept white guys who are nerds and lames, but will only respect the worst kind of Black men.
Well, it's not that she expects the only worst kind of Black man. That's all that's available to her. In other words, good guys are available, but they ain't out there trying to kick it. They ain't out here trying to aggressively meet these women. All that's out here is garbage. So the good guy, he don't got no time. He's working. The good guy ain't got no time to be in the club chasing that. So she's available to that. You see, you could be at the light. A girl's in the light with a drop-top BMW. Another guy pulls up with his drop-top BMW. Law student from Yale, just came from the job. He may say, hey, how you doing? She may look and be like, please, because she got her own shit. But guess what? The next light, little bum-ass dude walking across the street, he got nothing to lose. He gonna holler at her, make her laugh, and she gonna pull over. Think about that. So these concepts have a lot to do with the ability of, yeah, you got my attention, but you got my attention. So what's available to her, which she finds out later, because now she met this guy that was walking vividly and she had a car and he didn't. And now he's finding out she's a bum, he ain't working, but now he made love to her, she's in love with him and all the above. That's what's aggressively getting in these women's heads. These good guys are aggressive. And I think good guys need to start being more aggressive to the situation if there's a woman that they want, because a lot of times they're intimidated by that. If a guy sees a woman that has her shit together, even though she's a hood rat, but she's ghetto, but she got a good job working for transit or whoever she's doing, whatever, they tend to, what can I offer her? But I'm like, listen, that bum ass nigga got nothing to offer her either, but he approached her and he got it. So the reality is that they end up they only being with those bad black men because that's all they see. So a white guy, and you don't believe that all the time. The white guy's a nerdy dude too, because he could be a white dude that's on drugs and all types of shit too. Like a lot of times, but just not good. Like don't think just because you see a black woman with a white guy that's nerdy that his shit is together either. That shit don't mean nothing. Like I know plenty of black women that got bird ass white boys.
All right, listen, man. We got the chat lit. Hey, Nate, man, they don't be coming in the chat like that, man. You know what I'm saying? But you spitting some shit. I like that.
Yeah, this is 313 here with a few thoughts. Thugs and the women who love them, and I use that term, love, very loosely. Robert Briffaut, born in France, surgeon by trade, later in his life became a social anthropologist, is known for what is called today Briffaut's Law. Briffaut's Law states that the female, not the male, determines all the conditions of the animal family, where the female can derive no benefit from association with the male. No such association takes place. In other words, as women say, why would I be with you if you can't do anything for me? This is popular among at least so-called African-American women, as I don't have much experience with other races of women. There are a few corollaries that could be added to Briffaut's Law, the main idea being what I just mentioned. And these corollaries are stated as follows. Past benefit by the male does not provide for continued or future association. Many of you may remember Janet Jackson's song, I think it came out in the late 80s or 90s, What Have You Done For Me Lately? So we can see Briffaut's Law in effect in popular media and in conversations with women today. The second corollary states that any agreement where the male provides a current benefit in return for a promise of future association is null and void as soon as the male had provided the benefit. See corollary 1. So once she got the benefit from you, if you don't move on to the next one, she's going to leave you for the most part. Third and last corollary is as follows. A promise of future benefit has no limited influence on current or future association, with the influence inversely proportionate to the length of time until the benefit will be given, and directly proportionate to the degree to which the female trusts the male, which is not likely. That's to say that as long as you are providing benefits for her, as long as you can continue to provide benefits for her, she may stick by your side. And if your job is, let's say, you're a doctor or a surgeon, but you lose this job, and there's no promise of future or guarantee of future benefits, she just may leave you. I have a coworker, female coworker, that just divorced her husband who was injured on a job. I had never witnessed anything like this. He was injured on the job. They were married, and of course his injury was so severe that he needed home care. And after years of this, his beloved wife decided to divorce him and live her own life because she stated it was too hard to deal with a sick person. Although he had a home health care aide and although he had the support of his parents, it was too much for her to stick by this guy's side in sickness and in health. That's a perfect example of default law. He can no longer provide benefits. So after a while, she was out the door. Now, what does default law have to do with bums, thugs, and the women who love them? Well, we can clearly see that default law is truly female nature. Again, we can see this through mass media. Any conversation with a woman, she will repeat these things. And I've heard this over and over again my whole life. Why would a woman deal with a man who can't do anything for her? Speaking financially, in other ways, as if a man is born to be her servant. This is what American society has led women to think and believe. And not only American society, we can see this in traditional cultures. We can see this in even primitive cultures. The alpha male, the male who can provide the physical protection, the male who can provide most of the resources to ensure her survival. And this is just female nature. But what we have in the black community, and maybe it exists in other communities too, again, I'm not that familiar with them. I live in a segregated city called Chicago, so which is one of the most segregated cities in the nation. So again, I don't have much contact with women of other races. So feel sorry for me. Anyway, in the black community, there's a phenomenon that takes place that no one talks about. This phenomenon happens often, and it's part of the culture, at least in lesser developed communities, also known as the hood. This phenomenon, again, occurs very often, is a phenomenon which pretty much goes against default law in female nature. And this phenomenon is simply women who take care of men, women who take care of bums and support them financially. And what I mean by this is typical, well, I wouldn't say typical, because this reason why I didn't want to say typical is because this is across the board. So you have not just the female who receives welfare benefits, vouchers for an apartment and that the government pays for it, a woman who receives, food benefits, free food from the government, just your welfare queens. You don't just see this in the welfare queens. You also see this phenomenon in women who are nurses and teachers, and even some professional women. So it's across the board. So my point here is this. You have a African-American male, so-called, who may have dropped out of high school, has a criminal record, from small criminal records such as thefts and maybe drugs, from armed robberies in his background, from smaller crimes to bigger crimes, to violent crimes to non-violent crimes. And of course, this man who dropped out of high school, and in some cases didn't even make it to high school, and has a criminal background, cannot find gainful employment. So what he does is that he hustles in the street, whether it's peddling drugs or whatever vice of his choice. And then you will have a woman who will take this man, date him, fall in love with him, so-called, have his children, and in, of course, every case, allows this man to live with her and off of her. So she fully supports him. I have many friends that I grew up with, well, I like to say, well, maybe associates, not friends. Many associates that I grew up with who this applies to. Men that I know who sit at home and play PlayStation and don't have a job, is not looking for a job. And the woman goes to work every day and provides food for these men, in some cases an allowance for these men. And they provide all of a man's substance. And some of these men may go out and, sell weed or sell drugs on the side. here and there. But for the most part, their support, their livelihood, their lifestyle, their living comes from a woman, this black woman. Now, Brifold's law says that when there is no benefits, no association takes place. And the chief benefit being financial. So what I want to explore in this video is, why is there such a reversal of female nature in the black community? Or is it a reversal of female nature at all? So I want to uncover some of these things and provoke some thoughts and some ideas, and maybe my listeners may have some feedback, some input as I attempt to explore this phenomenon that occurs very often. So I have a few thoughts on maybe why these women take care of bums and thugs and why they give them their resources. Could it be that these women lack the ability to attract men of means? Could it be that these women's sexual market value is so low that they have to reach down into the trenches and grab a man in which other women would find undesirable? Is that possible? Could it be because she may be fat, or maybe she's ugly, or maybe she has too many children, as the reason why she feels that she can't get a man of means that may either add to her supposed success or supersede her success in the fact that this man can take care of her? Is it her choice? Is it that she can't select a man of means because of the environment she lives in? And at first glance, and in talking about this with other people, this is the most common response that I get, is that these women don't have good men around, so they have to date the bums and the thugs. But what I find strange about that, and what I find lacking in that argument, is the fact that I personally know of women who are nurses and who are teachers and other blue collar and even some cases white collar professions who date bums and thugs. In Chicago, there was a female alderman. I forget her name. I forget what ward, what area. But this female alderman was dating a dirty bum thug. What was her excuse? Are there no lawyers and other politicians that she could date? Also, another woman was a chief of staff of a high-up politician who gave a convicted felon a job, and of course she got in trouble for it and ended up subsequently getting fired. But she gave a job to her convicted thug boyfriend, who she was taking care of. So how do you explain that? Women who have access to men of means, women who have well above what the average man would have, to go and say, hey, I want this guy who has nothing and I will take care of him. So again, that does little to explain the phenomenon, the idea that these women don't have access. Because how would you explain those who do have access? You know, strange things happen in the black community. Strange things. So I don't think that that is answer enough. The second thing, maybe it's because these women don't need money because they are well off. And if it's not a great paying job or profession, maybe it's the government and the welfare. So they don't look for men who have money. That could explain it in part, but as we know, female nature is full of greed, an insatiable appetite to want more and more. And what I find amazing is that oftentimes these women don't even trade up. I know women who dealt with dirty thug after dirty thug after dirty thug. And I really mean dirty. I mean, when you see these men, they're unkept, unclean, ungroomed. I mean, no haircuts, no shaving, no clean clothes. I'm talking about dirty thug. And I've seen women of means go from one dirty thug to the next dirty thug to the next dirty thug. And again, these women, at first glance, they would look somewhat sophisticated and somewhat intelligent. But it's something about a dirty thug that they just love, which is opposite of what female nature is. Is the so-called African-American woman a different creature of a different sort and type that the very laws of nature doesn't apply to her? How can we explain this phenomenon? A fourth viewpoint, or a third, viewpoint would be maybe she enjoys power and control. Maybe she likes the fact that these thugs depend on her for resources and comfort and food, that their very well-being is dependent upon this female. Maybe women, black women in particular, like the fact that they have this control and power. Maybe this is what it means to be independent to them. Maybe this is what it means to be a queen to them, to have a man in submission and subjected to them. And I think that's probably the best possible answer, so to speak. I mean, think about the control that a woman would have. Again, I personally know of a guy who has been put out by his girlfriend several times. And this man has absolutely nothing. He squandered his whole life. Went to the same elementary school, same grammar school, had the same opportunities, but this man decided that getting a job and advancing, being able to take care of himself wasn't the thing to do. So of course he dropped out and got involved in different vices. And this man doesn't have a huge family to lean on. So whenever this woman puts him out, he's homeless. And of course he's going to come back crawling and begging and crying because he has nowhere to go. Definitely can't come here, but he has nowhere to go. So what is he to do but worship this woman? What is he to do but beg her and plead? And maybe this feels good to a woman. But then you would think that a woman wouldn't respect a man who has nothing to offer her. Again, are these women an anomaly? Are they a different creature of a different sort? And I don't mean to be redundant. Again, this is not something that happens here and there. Almost every person that I know in the community that I grew up in, this phenomenon takes place. Most of the men cannot find gainful employment because of their criminal backgrounds and lack of education. Now, there's many reasons where we can come up with why this happens, but the fact remains that these women are taking care of these men. And there are other men that these women can choose from. Not that I would want these women, but if I walked past them and said hello, they would look right past me. And it doesn't make me feel bad. I mean, I've had my share of women in my lifetime. I've never been shortcoming when it comes to dealing with women. And I don't even like the type of woman who would lay down with a dirty, nasty thug who doesn't have health care benefits, don't go to the doctor. I can pass on that. See, we as men oftentimes put women on such a pedestal that we think that any woman is deserving of our love and affection. But there are women that are beneath me in a mental and physical sense. And again, I don't believe a woman is a man's equal per se, but there are women who shouldn't even be looked upon as an option for a relationship, sexual or otherwise. And these are the women who sleep with dirty, nasty thugs. And on a side note, if I'm dealing with a woman, if I meet a woman, although I have no interest in meeting new women, if I was to meet a woman and I seen a picture of her boyfriend, her old or ex-boyfriend, and I could pretty much, with some reason and with some assurance that she's dated a dirty, nasty thug, that's not the woman for me. I do not want to go behind Pookie, who don't wash his ass and doesn't go to the doctor, that dirty thug shit. Not for me. Anyway, so these women have power over these men. These women have reversed nature. In fact, the black community itself is a reversal of nature. I mean, I know another guy, a guy that I grew up with again, another guy, a different guy from who I mentioned just before. He told me that his girlfriend, who takes care of him, or we can say his baby mama, who he lives with, one of his baby mamas, he has several baby mamas, she told him that he can't even visit his mother. Now, this is a Puerto Rican woman, so I wouldn't necessarily, well, I guess we can classify Puerto Ricans as black. But this woman told him that he couldn't go visit his mother and that he has a curfew, he has to be in at a certain time. Now, this is a guy who I grew up with, who was one of the biggest gangsters and thugs I knew. I mean, this guy was fearless. I mean, when we were growing up, this guy wouldn't duck or dodge anybody in a fight, wasn't scared of anyone. But now he has no nuts. He's dependent on this woman. And I mean, I've met her before. She's a fiery, mean Puerto Rican woman. And this guy cannot make any decisions for himself. This guy has a curfew, and he's not even allowed to visit his mother unless she deems it necessary. And I just find that amazing, that these women act like controlling men. And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe they want to be men. Maybe these women have what Freud would call, I don't know if I'm using it in the correct sense, penis envy. Maybe these women wish that they were boys. And these men, since they are feminized, growing up with single black mothers, go to school as female teachers. Everywhere you look, it's a matriarchy. Mama has the control, or grandmama has the control. You go from grandmama and mama's house to your woman's house. And you depended on grandmama and mama, and you depended on your girlfriend, wife, baby mama, whomever. And I think that probably explains it. What we see in the black community, again, is a reversal of nature. If anyone out there has ever read the Willie Lynch letter, it somewhat explains this. We have a complete matriarchal system in the black community. Now, there are some exceptions, of course. There are plenty of women who want to hold every corollary to Briefl's law and make that true in their nature. I'm not denying that whatsoever. But there's a large percentage of black women who prefer to date bums and thugs, who love the control, who love being the boss. This is a result of matriarchy and feminism. A grand experiment that has led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of African American youths. And the fact that women cannot raise boys. A matriarchal system is a fallen system, is a wicked system. Do you realize that black women are the number one killers in the so-called African American community? The number one killers. They are the rulers. And what I mean by number one killers, all you have to do is look at abortion rates, and that would substantiate my claim. So they are the leaders, the rulers. And the men in these communities are the bitches. The men are the women. So meet the new man, which is the black woman. Meet the new woman, which is the black man. Now, I don't know if these rates are becoming higher or lower, but when I was younger, I didn't see much of this. I didn't see the phenomenon of women taking care of men to such a degree as pronounced as I see it today. And again, these women are still whores. They still will swap out one bum for another bum, one thug for another thug. And all these things are acceptable in a matriarchy. A woman can do no wrong. She has absolute power. She has all the jobs, all the resources, welfare, housing assistance, food assistance, you name it, she has it. Any mistakes that she made can be erased by Planned Parenthood, can be erased by adoption, can be erased by child support. If she goes to jail, she can still get a job. If she's homeless, she can find shelter. In fact, you will never see homeless women in America, period. At least not by force, it would be by choice. So for the Black community, we live in a matriarchy. And I think that's the best possible explanation that I can come up with, unless you guys out there have some other thoughts on that. That since we do live in a matriarchy, women are the men, they're the bosses, and they want women as bitches. These women want submissive men. These women want to be the breadwinner. They want to control. These women are boys, and you have to be somewhat feminine to deal with most Black women. And most guys who've been in a relationship with Black women know that as soon as the relationship ensues, there's a power struggle. Because she wants to have the penis. She wants to own and control. And to me, it's disgusting. I mean, you have to be feminine and somewhat homosexual to deal with most Black women. If she won't submit to you, then you would be definitely submitting to her. There's no two ways about it. There's no such thing as a 50-50 relationship. It doesn't exist. Now, maybe if you all are sex partners or somewhat and see each other every now and then, maybe that's possible. But a relationship, that's when you're involved and you're in constant contact, somebody has to be the leader. I think even in gay relationships, somebody plays the boy. But the Black woman is drunk in the Kool-Aid in some instances, thinking that things can be equal. At least that's what she tells you. But she knows that only one person can have the control, and she decided that that control goes to her. Another thought related to the premise of this video, but somewhat unrelated as well. Women control sex. As Briefholt's law states, she is the doorkeeper of intimacy. She is the door gatekeeper of procreation. All these things are her choice. And women argue with that and act as if men make the choices of the women that they choose to be with. Women have all the control, all the responsibility when it comes to mate selection. It's completely her choice. If 10 men were standing in a room and all these 10 men wanted to have sex with this woman, I'm not talking about being raped, 10 men says, hey, they want to have sex with this one woman. Who decides if they have sex? Of course, it's the woman. Now, I've had women argue with me about this. This is one of the reasons why I don't talk to women. So the woman chooses either the one guy or all 10 if she wants to. Bottom line, she chooses. So if the woman chooses and every man wants to be chosen, well, then whose responsibility is it when a choice is made? Of course, it's the woman. It's a simple logic. And you can't even discuss this with a female because she can't see this because she is irrational and illogical. Now, having said that, the women control sex. She decides who, when, what, and where. Completely. So if she dates a bum or a thug, it's her fault. If she dates a guy that turns out to be a murderer and harms her children or harms her, it's her choice and her fault. Now, there are things that you can't predict, and I understand that. But for the most part, when a woman meets a man, she knows what his character is. She knows, and she chooses. And she has to suffer whatever consequence comes along with that. So if you're with a thug and he kicks your ass, it's your fault for choosing a thug. Now, of course, we know women don't like to be accountable and take responsibility for anything. But this is logic here. And on another note, let's say you have a woman that's 40 years old. Let's say she's been married maybe once, maybe twice, or not even at all. From my experience in talking to women, a lot of African-American women start having sex in elementary school, which is around the age of 13 and 14. Okay? So while she's in her teenage years, she's having sex with multiple men, riding the cock carousel, going from man to man, dick to dick to dick, choosing this guy and choosing that guy, from elementary school all through high school. So now she's in her 20s, and the multiple dick riding continues. Man to man, man to man. Selecting this guy for a moment, then selecting that guy. Oh, this guy doesn't fit right. Now this guy fits right. No, now this guy doesn't fit right. Let me get a new guy. This is the typical sexual behavior of most women, period. So she does this through her 20s. Now she's in her 30s. And the dick riding continues. Except maybe she may dick ride this guy 3 years and another guy 2 years, and then she'll be single and date for 18 months. And in that 18 months time, she'll have sex with 4 guys. Now she's getting older. She may have had a couple of kids in the process in her 20s or in her teens or in her early 30s. Now she's 40. Now she wants to settle down. Now she's desperate. Now almost any man will do. Now, what are you getting if you're the man that marries this cock-riding, insatiable woman? She has over 20 years of failed relationships. And none of these failed relationships in her mind is her fault. 20 years of multiple men that didn't work. Now let's use certain, just not certain, excuse me. Let's use just logic for a second and common sense. If this woman has 20 years of failed relationships, going from man to man, dick to dick, right? Either A, all men are screwed up, fucked up, and are no good. At least all the men that she's dated, and it's probably about 15, 20, 30, who knows, at least 10. Either all the men that she's dated is just fucked up and there's no hope for a good man ever, for not just for her, but for any woman. All men are either beneath her, don't meet the standard, miss the mark, whatever you want to put in there. Or B, she's fucked up. So A, either all the men are fucked up, or B, she's fucked up. The common denominator being her in all these relationships. I don't think there's a third option. Either she's fucked up or they're fucked up. 20 years of failed relationships. Now, if you were talking to somebody, because people think that a marriage certificate really is a big deal. In my mind, it's just a piece of paper. I don't think you need permission from the government to have sex with a woman. And that's pretty much all that it is. And also giving them a license to take your wealth and resources, which is, of course, a bad deal. Now, let's think about this for a minute. If any sensible man met a woman that was, let's say, 35 years old, and she's told you that she's been married 14 times and divorced 14 times, most men would run from her. Well, at least sensible men. I know there's some men that still marry her. So she has 14 marriages, and I'm being liberal. How is that much different from a woman who you get with, and she's 35 or 40, and she said she's had, even though she's not going to admit to this, 15 relationships, 20 relationships, 30 relationships, all of them failed? What are the chances, what are the odds that her relationship with you would fail? I would say pretty damn high. What are you getting? You're getting a woman who has been with 15, 20, 30 men, and all of them, all those relationships have failed. What makes you so exceptional? What makes you so different? And if you were get down to the core of the situation, she's left 15, 20, 30 men. So she left them. What are the odds that she's going to leave you too? For whatever reason. This is what men subject themselves to. But we live in a matriarchy, so it's okay because the women are the boys and the boys, the black men, are the girls. And they just have to accept this. This is why men go their own way. You really have nothing. I mean, again, 20 years of failed relationships. You know what this says about a woman? 20 years of failed relationships, and she has the complete power of choice in who she deals with. What logically connects for me, the conclusion that I have is that women cannot be trusted with mate selection. She does not know and possibly can't know what she needs or what she even wants in a relationship. She can't be trusted. 20 years or more of failed relationships. And all of a sudden she's wise now. Oh, she made mistakes in the past with 15, 20, 30 men that she's been with. Now she's wise. But damn, it took you over 20 years to become wise in mate selection? To become wise with your choices? This can only mean one or two things. Either you just have the baddest luck in the world, or you're a fucking retard. A retarded child. It takes you 20 years to realize what type of man you should have and be with. But these are the excuses that women have. 20 years of failed relationship. Now she's wise. Now she's ready. 35, 40, 45 years old. Ready now. Now she's mature. Now she's not going to accept this. Now she's not going to accept that. Amazing. Now you know what you want. How can that not be mental retardation? 20 years. But I thought women are supposed to be the mature ones, the emotionally sophisticated, the more mature of the sexes, the more intelligent of the sexes, the sexes that makes the better choices. Especially when it comes to affairs of the heart, romance and emotions, relationships and love. I thought they were the mature sex, huh? They're the ones with the power over relationships, huh? But they cannot select the right guy yet and still. Then some may say there are no right guys out there. Many decent men have the experience in the past and some in the present of the woman who chooses to date Pookie, the drug dealer, the rock star, the thug, the dropout, the convict, over Poindexter, who actually gets the good grades and gets the good job. Again, even in my own life, I know women who will walk right past me. Now, I'm not the greatest guy in the world, but I do work a full-time job. I've been on that job for about 12 years now. I live alone, my own place. I drive somewhat of a luxury car. It's up in age, but, you know, my shit is pretty, kind of tight, And I can afford a few little luxuries, like I can go on a nice vacation. If I wanted to go buy a brand new car, I could. I'm not bragging or boasting. Not that I would offer these resources to a woman, but a chick would walk right past me, although I've brushed my teeth, my hair is well kept, my beard is lined up, my clothes are clean, my car is clean. She'll walk right past me for the bum, dirty thug. And I'm not mad, because these women aren't worthy of me. And again, I have never had a situation where I couldn't get a woman. But for the Poindexters of the world, for the guys who would like affection from women, this is what they have to deal with. The outright rejection of a man who has the strength of character to persevere and get the good grades and wake up every morning and go to a job, although he may or may not hate it, versus the thug or the bum who chooses to just give up in life. The thug who is truly weak. The thug who, although he expresses machismo and has an overinflated idea of what manhood is by being overly aggressive, overly mean, over the top in masculinity, parades himself as a good catch to the infantile minded average female who likes thugs.
This is boy Yup Mom. This is Fair You. This is what these YouTube people opinions does not mean with what I think, with what they think. So we shall continue. We shall continue. I'm still trying to figure out why black women love thugs. And anybody got any idea? Holla at your boy. Holla at your boy.
Our title is Thug Love Expose a Woman's Fatal Attraction. And, we had talked a little bit before this interview about your testimony, and you have a very powerful testimony. So we're going to be hearing that in today's show. But, I had lined up some questions that I think our audience wants to hear. Because a lot of times when we're doing these workshops, a lot of people want to hear from a woman's perspective. So, okay, Ray, we hear what you're saying, but let's hear from a woman's perspective. How
I can't wait to give them my perspective.
Okay. So we have, the first question I had is, as a counselor working with young women, what do you feel is the attraction for many women for that thug life?
I think that the attraction, that it comes from a number of different places. Number one, I think there's a void. There's a void inside of that young woman. There's an empty space. There's something that's missing. And I don't believe that she quite even understands that there is a void or what's missing. But what she interprets that is, there's a desire that needs to be met, and she's looking for this need to be met. And I say that it's a fantasy love in which that she's drawn to, and there's this whole ideal of somebody, a knight in shining armor, if you will, someone who can protect her, someone who can keep her, someone who can shelter her, someone who is sometimes, because you have some people who are living in that lifestyle, they're making money. So someone who can provide for her. And at that age, providing could be anything from a $5 shirt to a Happy Meal, but she's just wanting someone who can show her that they care. Because at home, a lot of times these girls don't have that emotional, and the key things that I want to emphasize is the emotional support, the emotional attachment. Because mom may be in a home, dad may be in a home, and it's not always that she comes from a physically, verbally, or a spiritually abused family, but there's an emotion. She's looking for that emotional stability. She wants to attach to somebody on an emotional level, and here comes this guy who is able to provide all of that and then some, so she thinks.
But even like you said, some of these women are attracted to some of these men that are self-proclaimed killers. They'll say, I'm a killer, I'm a drug dealer. But that doesn't seem to faze a lot of these young women. Why is that?
Well, we're living in a time where you listen to the music. If you're listening to something and you have this rapper, I don't care if it's Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, Lil B, and some of these other ones that are coming out, and they're glorifying this, what we know is a horrific lifestyle. They're glorifying being a pimp. They're glorifying being a killer. They're glorifying being a murderer, murdering everything from people to women's anatomy. I'll say it that way. So these women are drawn to that. It's almost as if there's this hypnotic spell that they're being put under, and they're in a trance, and they're just dancing along to the lyrics of these songs, and it's getting into their ears. Before you know it, it's inside of their spirits. And here comes this man she's almost like bait, the bait of Satan. And so here comes this man along, and he's singing that same song that she's listening to constantly inside of earbuds. So not only is this music just being pumped into her atmosphere, but she's actually placing it inside of her ear through an earbud. So now it's going deep down within inside of her spirit and becoming a part of her. The way she thinks, the way that she feels. So now it's almost as if there's this latch and it's drawing her in.
So what are some of the dangers of that? for women, falling into this type of attraction. And it almost seems like, it's almost like, that guy walking down the street with the big pit bull. It's like they want that mean dog just to kind of intimidate others. See, women kind of have that mentality too. They want the biggest guy out there, the most toughest, ruthless individual out there. Almost like that guy kind of showcasing that pit bull.
I believe so. I believe that, it's a thing where she's talking to her girlfriends of who her man is. Where we see it used to be. We can look at TV and you have the girl who's dating the high school jock. She's dating the captain of the football team, the star quarterback. That's my man. And girls want to feel good. They want other girls to be envious of them and be jealous of them. It's
All right, Chucky.
whole,
Appreciate the love.
mean girl syndrome, put cattiness that young women tend to do, unfortunately, which is a whole nother episode within itself. But then these men, they also provide that same type of they feel that same space, if you will, as far as, that's my man, he's a gangster. Look, he got this kind of gun. He's a blood. He's a crip, and what he's claiming and what he has done, how much dope he pushes and things of that nature.
I'm trying to hold it down, Chuck. I'm trying to get
rights.
like you.
And
I'm
so
getting there,
they
though.
are walking around
But I get
with
there.
that leash and the dangers of that.
Shout out to CC.
Again, we can look back and see, okay, if you're dating this guy and he has all these different guns, he is selling drugs, and you're with this guy, then who's not to say that he will have you in a situation to where he's with a rival gang member, someone else who wants to maybe jack him for what they think he may have, or even what he possibly does have, and you're right there inside of that same space with him. And now, unfortunately, if he gets shot, then you're going to get shot. Or some of the girls I've come in contact with, now that guy might ask you to hold his dope for him if the police pull him over. And so now you hold this dope for him because you feel obligated to, or you just want to feel like you're the good woman, the good wife, because a lot of them call them their wifey.
Right.
And now wifey does her job, she holds the dope, and now you're going to jail for him.
You bring up a valid point, because I remember I was doing a workshop in photography at Chowchilla Prison. And I remember talking to a young lady, 18 years old, and she was in my class, and she was from North Highlands, Sacramento. And, she was really, showed me like a real interest in photography, asking a lot of questions. And, so I started telling her about City College, American River College. I said, well, when do you get down? She says, I'm not. I said, you're not? She says, I'm doing life in prison. She said that she was with her boyfriend, who was a North Highlands Crip. And she was just driving with them. And I guess they pulled over somewhere, maybe at a fast food restaurant, and he got into it with another rival gang member. He takes the gun, shoots the rival gang member. They both get life. Because there's new gang enhancement laws out there that a lot of people don't know about.
Right.
And so if you even dress or wear the colors, you get points added to you. That means something as far as graffiti can now be a felony now under gang enhancement laws.
Wow.
So a lot of people aren't aware of that.
No.
So that's good that you brought that up, because being attracted to that, you're right. You can get pulled over and the guy say, hey, put these drugs in your purse. They're not gonna search your purse, and then bam, now she's going down the river for many years.
And what they don't think about in that instant, now there goes every hope you've had, every dream, everything that you have believed in, that which you wanted to have, every aspiration. Now, because of that one decision that young woman has made, is now been flushed away. It's gone. It no longer exists. So like this poor young woman, all because she decided to get entangled with this type of young man. Now she's going to be facing life, where she had a natural inclination for photography. It's gone.
Sad. So you said just like that Pied Piper, a lot of these women are being drawn into the lifestyle. Now we look at Janet Jackson, who came out with that song, she wanted nasty. Was it Nasty? She wanted Nasty Boy.
Yes.
And then some other songs. You got MC Light, I Want a Roughneck.
Yes.
Okay. how do you think that changed the whole dynamics of the dating culture and the dating scene after those songs? You think that had an influence?
Of course it did. And the first thing that automatically pops into my mind is, dang, you really finna make me tell how old I am and because of course I know those songs and remember them, and I was listening to them too, and let's not forget even Salt and Pepper, when she was dating Trench from Naughty by Nature. And that's really when you have that emergence of that whole type of lifestyle and showing these women who were attracted to them. And if you notice, the media didn't always depict it was some girl from the hood who was attracted to these men, as you said, Janet Jackson, but it was that girl, that pretty girl, that girl from the suburbs, that girl who you wouldn't necessarily think would be attracted to that guy, and that's who they pinned together.
Right.
And so if you have young women who are extremely impressionable, so now no longer am I necessarily always looking for that straight edge guy to bring home. And I think that, even before that time period, I don't care if we're talking about the 40s, 50s, 60s, there's always been an attraction to that boy from the other side of the tracks. However, when we talk about what has happened in more recent times, the media is pushing it. There's an agenda. I truly feel that there's an agenda behind that, and it's pushing us towards that and making it to where it's more acceptable, to where if we fast forward to 2011, you have now that, whereas the songs at that time, they were, I want a nasty boy, and we knew what they were talking about, but it wasn't as explicit. Whereas today, it's extremely explicit of their lifestyle, what they're looking
New
for, what they want to
subscribers,
do.
hit the
We were
like. It's
talking
your
about
boy
pole dancing,
Yuckmouth.
a while ago. Now you have these guys who are talking about, girls in a strip club, and I think it's T-Pain, he's in love with a stripper.
Right.
And so girls are listening to these songs, and they want the attention of guys. And if they're saying that these guys, this is what they're attracted to, and the guys are singing these songs, unfortunately, these kids whose brains who haven't yet been fully developed, and they're listening to that, they're interpreting this as, this is who I've got to become. This is what I must look like. And then when you're watching these videos, and we know these kids are watching the videos, this is now, they're going to start dressing like this, they're going to start talking like it, acting like it, and they're dancing like it now. So everything in which they're doing is mimicking these actions, which are now putting them in extremely high-risk situations.
Right. I was looking, showing a clip, a PowerPoint to a small group the other day, and I was brought up a clip of the lyrics of Soldier by Destiny Child. And there's some verses in there where she talks about, I like those guys with their eyes be so low from that chiefin'. And we all know what chiefin' is, smoking marijuana. And she says, I want a rude boy. And so we see, you hear a lot of older people especially talk about how a lot of times these kids are kind of absent of manners.
Yes.
Well, you look at a pretty lady like Beyonce, she's telling these young boys, she doesn't want a polite boy. She wants a rude boy.
Right.
She wants somebody with street credibility.
Yes.
She said, if you ain't hood, I ain't checking you.
She don't want to deal with them. Rihanna even has a song where it's called Rude Boy. And so you have, again, here are these images, and what the kids don't realize is that behind the images is someone who's created this. Right. They've created this image because it's marketable. They know it's going to sell. So there's an agenda behind that, but beyond that, we know that there's so many different factors that go into it, but how does that play out with our young women? Well, unfortunately, it's totally ripping them apart. It's confusing them. It's projecting an image to them that no longer do you need to care about who you are. You don't need to care about your body. You don't need to care about your mind. You don't need to care about any sense of self-esteem, self-respect. Self-respect has totally gone out the window.
Why is that?
I think so. Again, if we look at the music, I don't want to pin everything onto the music, because there's other factors that go into it too, because you have a lack of responsibility in some of our parents as well too. You have a lack of responsibility, our educational system. There's so many different fingers that we could point at, but if we're looking at if we focus in on that thug lifestyle and what is making that thug, enhancing that thug lifestyle, if you will, what is really giving fire behind that, then we have to look at the music. We've got to look at what has become socially acceptable now. We have to look at what are we allowing to be permissible within inside of our culture and how it's changed. We look at reality television, and these things are totally tearing down what was the sense of self-respect. If you can
So
turn
basically,
on
you talking about the
television
entertainers?
and you get
They
kudos for
helping
beating a grown woman
black women
fighting
or women
another
in
grown woman,
general
and
market
that
thugs,
show is
dope
now has the
boys.
highest
While
ratings
good
on
men, they
VH1,
saying, well,
Basketball
leave them
Wives.
niggas behind or
Well,
they
the
ain't
highest
shit.
ratings on the network.
Sad.
And the show is, I know the producers say they don't promote the women fighting, but come on, you could stop it at any given time you want to.
That's what people want to see.
That's what people want to see.
And people have a taste for violence, and
Yes.
I've been looking at these new films and shows coming out. They got this one show called Revenge.
Yes.
About a young lady that I guess she's going out there and I guess portraying herself, you know, a beautiful young lady, and just kind of, you know, playing the normal part, but then on the under, she's getting revenge. I don't necessarily know what the show's about, but
Right.
you know, I know it's going to be probably a pretty violent show. Then you got Columbia, same thing. I guess.
Right.
Is it called Columbia, that new movie that's coming out?
But I don't mean to interrupt you, but if you look at what all of these things, the common thread in all of them, you have a beautiful woman. You have a beautiful woman who's been hurt. She's a woman scorned. She has a jaded perspective of life, who she is. She has no attachment to anything. She's completely detached. She's absent of love and full of fear. We only operate out of two base emotions, love and fear. And so if you're operating out of a place of revenge, that's not love. So it's fear-based.
Right.
And so if this is what's being pumped in front of you, and then you have these young women, again, these extremely impressionable women who are sitting back and this is what they're seeing, there's all kind of messages being thrown. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. And then if we go back to this whole thing of what pretty is, the media says that you got to be at least a size 0. Not even a 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a normal size for a young woman or for a woman, you know. And then they're always on a diet. If you're too big, if they say you're too big, then you have to go on a diet. So then in turn, what happens? So now you have this girl who's feeling that, okay, I'm not pretty enough physically. My hair doesn't look the right way, because we're still dealing with girls who feel they're too dark. Girls are still dealing with that, their skin complexion and their hair.
The movie School Days.
Yes, still dealing with these issues. And so now what do you have? You have these girls who are dealing with that. So how am I going to get a guy? Well, one of the ways I can get a guy is through my body. If I'm promiscuous, and then that goes back to the whole self-esteem, and then again talking about the music, and one way that I know that I can please a guy, one way that I can get a guy, and it's through my body. And all these shows in which we see that are coming up, they're promoting this type of behavior, the drugs, the alcohol. All my inhibitions now are being shut down, they're calmed down, and I'm more willing to do some of the things that I'm not too comfortable with, but I'll let the alcohol be the reason that I go ahead and just do this anyway.
Very well said. So saying all that, let's go now into your own personal testimony. And it's powerful. So I'm gonna let you take your time, but can you take us back there?
Amen. Well, I praise God. I praise God for the woman that I am today, that can stand here, that can sit here and even sit behind a camera, sit and talk to you, and without having any tears, without having my heart pulled on, to be able to actually share what I've seen, where I've come from. And as I said before, you know, God is constantly reminding me that all things work together for his purpose, for the good, you know, of those who are called, who are chosen, who serve him, who love him. And as long as we keep that in mind, then we always understand that it's not about me anyway. You know, I had a journey that I went through, and for the longest I didn't understand. The first time I attempted suicide, I was about 7 years old. And I have dealt with the spirit of suicide I dealt with it for years. for years, and I watched this spirit weave its way through my life. It started when I was 7. It came back again when I was in high school. I was
So when you're, like I said, when you're going to commit suicide, what was going through your psyche? Are you thinking about the other side, or are you just thinking about, I just need to escape?
escape. For me, it was always escape.
So it wasn't thinking like,
Escape.
I'm going to go somewhere better. It
No,
was just, I need to get out of here.
just leave here. I need to leave this place. And I'm going to speak for myself, and then also with some of the research in which I've done and some of the people whom I've spoke to. When I say research, that I want to also include some of the different interviews and people who I'm spoken to, who've dealt with spirits of suicide, who've dealt with suicidal tendency and thoughts, that it's no coping skills. You don't know how to handle the pressure that's going on around you. You don't know how to internalize it. You don't know how to deal with whatever is affecting you at that given time. And for me, it was, I just need to vanish. I just need to leave. I just want to go. Not necessarily I want to die and perish and never live again. You know, that wasn't my initial thought that first time. It was, again, I'm only 7. So at the time, at 7 years old, there was just pain in my atmosphere. I grew up at this time of life. My mother's boyfriend was addicted to crack cocaine. He was also I called him in my book, I talk about him, and I called him a victim of the 80s. He was a victim of the 80s, you know, Miami Vice, player, pimp, playeristic lifestyle. So he was pushing dope, but he was also selling dope and using his own supply. He became a victim of this insidious drug, and so I'm growing up in this atmosphere. And he was also very abusive to my mother, physically abusive, emotionally abusive, and I saw this. And at 7 years old, I didn't know how to deal with what was going on inside of my environment. And I walked on eggshells constantly out of fear of what could happen to me next. So at 7, it wasn't necessarily, I just want to die and leave. I just want to go away. Let me take a vacation. Which is sad, without understanding that I was trying to take a permanent vacation without realizing it.
Wow.
But then when I attempted the next time, it was because I'd been physically assaulted. And that, it was more so, I want to leave, and I don't think I ever want to come back.
And you were 17 at that time?
At 17. And I could not understand, because it was someone who I trusted. A family, it was someone who was close to my family. So I couldn't understand why this person who I trusted and almost looked at as in a father-like type of image. And I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe in him and believe in him and what he was doing for my family, and everything that he represented. Because he represented something that was missing in my life, because I didn't grow up with my dad in the home. And so this person represented that. And there was I was very naive growing up, extremely naive. And I grew up very sheltered, but very inquisitive, and always looking for and trying to fit in all at the same time. Just a ball of mess, like most young women are.
Right.
You know, when you could come to that place and mature, you can understand that you just a ball of mess. And when someone touches and violates that ball, it sends you into another atmosphere, another place, because you don't know how to deal with it.
And you didn't have anybody to talk to?
No one. No one.
And you didn't tell on him?
I didn't tell, no.
Yeah.
I didn't, not
you didn't
initially.
Feel the support. You didn't feel the support?
No. And usually perpetrators will tell you the lie of, no one's going to believe you anyway. They're not going to believe you. Your mom's not going to believe you. Your grandma, your auntie, uncle, friends, no one's going to believe you. And cause you to feel and doubt yourself and what you know to be true and what is the right thing to do. And I'll back up prior to that. And some of the reasons why he felt no one would believe me is because I was a wild child. I used to wild out. You know, I hung with gangbangers because, again, I didn't grow up with my dad in the home. And so without realizing it, I was searching for someone to be, as I said, that shelter.
Now, at what point were you attracted you know, to
from
the
day
gangbang.
one.
I mean, but you know, like, was it something that clicked? Was it somebody?
From day
Was it a video
one.
you watched? Was it? I mean, what was that? You know, that drew you in? Was it an image you seen on TV and had a fantasy about it? Then all of a sudden you're walking down the street and seeing somebody that kind of fits into that.
It was all of
mold?
that. It was all of that and then some. It would be what you'd say now. It was the swag in which they carried. You know, so I'm sitting there watching, because then it was Tupac. I'm watching Tupac on TV, and I'm watching him, and he's having fun, and he's kicking it, he's living it up, and I'm 15, and I'm watching him, and you see Digital Underground, that's who was hot at that time, and NWA, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, and they're doing something that really we hadn't seen before. It was different. It wasn't something that I was going to school really initially seeing, not in junior high school. Then I got to high school, and there was guys who came from the hood, and they looked like that. It was almost, a girlfriend and I, we talk about it now, was like, girl, you see him? Because he looks like this thing we see on TV. And he's talking like him, he walking like he got that same kind of swag.
You said they're doing something that you never seen before. What was that they were doing? What was your perception of what they were doing?
The way they dressed, their pantsing, and their banging, and the confidence in which they exuded. There was something about the confidence in themselves, the pseudo-confidence, I'll say, because we know it wasn't real. But for a 14-year-old girl, it was just... It was almost as a presence that demanded attention.
So this guy could take care of you.
He could take care of me.
And
protect me.
Right.
And that's all, it was all of that wrapped into this presence that's standing before me. Hey, what's up? It was all wrapped up inside of that you could love me. You could hold my hand. You could tell me that you care about me. And I can believe that you mean it because of what I see and just your daily interactions. You mean what you say. You get respect. So if you tell me that you care about me and that you love me, I'm going to believe it. I'm going to believe it because of what I'm seeing. Your actions reflect that. You know, and I was drawn to that. And then it became almost as if every guy that I talked to, I was looking for that, because then there was the nice guys who would try to talk to me.
And what response would they get? Boring, is it?
A little boring. You know, there was nothing about them. There wasn't nothing special about them. There wasn't. Then you have the other thing of all of the other girls also wanted the other guys. So there's something appealing about this guy who everybody else wanted. But you don't really know why you want him. But most of those girls who wanted that guy were just like me. They didn't have a daddy at home. They didn't have somebody who told them that they loved them. Not someone that said, you daddy's little girl. Not someone who made them feel special. Feeling special should not come from this boy. That feeling of I feel special and I love you and I'm loved, that comes from daddy. But that's what they're looking for. That's what I was looking for. I can articulate that now as a grown woman. But at 14, 15, I couldn't put that into words. At 16, 17, 18, 19, I couldn't put that in words. That's exactly what I was looking for. I needed someone to say they loved me. Someone to tell me that I was beautiful, that I was special, that I meant something to them. And it had nothing to do with my body could give to them. And so fast forwarding within that testimony to that's the type of guy. And so if that's the type of guy that I'm attracted to, you can only imagine the type of stuff that I was into. So my boyfriend, if he's stealing cars, well, I'm rolling around in a stolen car. And again, the songs that were popular, GTA, Eazy-E, that's what he's talking about. So that's what boys is doing. They talking about smoking weed, getting high. That's what boys is doing. That's who I'm hanging out with. And so that's what I'm seeing. And so when I get violated, hands off, ain't nobody gonna believe you anyway. Look who you hanging around with. Look what you doing. Even though it wasn't my fault. And so my mind was just in a panic. And
So that victimizer almost made it seem like it was your fault.
yes.
Like you put yourself in this
Yes. You did this to yourself. By being you. That's heavy. For just being who you are. It's your fault.
So after that point when that happened, how did that change, your behaviors, your outlook?
Oh, it changed totally. Life? Oh, completely. Oh, it changed it in a sense that, because after I came out of that, because it wasn't an attempt to where I failed, and let me just keep going. I still have the taste of residue of the tar in my mouth. I can remember that taste of having my stomach pumped. I can't, it's hazy how I got to the hospital, even leaving the hospital, how long did I spend in the hospital? Those things I don't really remember. It changed because, number one, I was really, really good at suppressing things, pretending things didn't happen, things didn't exist. I could do that. As I say, put on a mask. Put on a mask, keep going. But things inside of me did change because then I took on the attitude of, I don't care no more. I don't care. I'm going to just do what I want to do, how I want to do it. I'm going to figure out how to make it happen for myself. And so in that type of thinking pattern, I continued dating those same type of guys. I found myself in a drive-by 2 times with a guy. I can remember driving down the street in the car, and I'm sitting on my boyfriend's lap, and he was drinking, they were high. He goes, hold on a second. And he pulls out a gun. He goes, bend down, Karen. He puts my head down and reaches over me with his arm and his gun and shoots in the car next to us, just driving down the street for no reason. He didn't know these people.
Wow.
And have no idea what happened. All I know is he aimed his gun directly into the window of the driver of the next car. And we sped off, dropped him off so he can go and run. And I got dropped off, and then someone else gave me a ride home. And I remember going home and taking a shower thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I just saw. What I was just a part of. Another time I found myself in a car, and some of the guy who I was with, his friends, they come over, we got to go get these dudes. They just tried to jack me, so we got to go get them. So they tell me and my girlfriend who I was with, come on, let's go. So we all hop in the car, and before I know it, we're in front of another house, and we're in the car while they're doing, not a drive-by, because these idiots didn't do drive-bys. I call them idiots now because I think of the stuff that they were doing. But park in front of the person's house, get out the car, and shoot the house up.
Wow.
And
so you could easily have been an accessory, not even knowing what was going on.
Not even know what's going on.
Wow.
Easily been an accessory.
Just think how many young women who did get caught, who didn't know what their boyfriend was going to do, like that young lady in Chowchilla.
Right.
Doing life in prison.
Right.
Especially with the new gang enhancement laws.
Exactly.
So I guess all tied in with this, that is kind of your message that you share with women, that they need to look out.
Look out. Look out. And, it's easy to say you're attracted to this guy for the reasons, whatever, if it's his swag and the things in which he does, but whatever it is, that void, understand that number one, that there is something that you're searching for, whether you don't want to admit to it to yourself. You find a quiet place and have a conversation with yourself. I never had that conversation with myself. If I would have had that conversation with myself, I wouldn't have found myself in the car while people are doing, again, just walk-ups, not drive-bys, but just walking up, shooting people's houses up, or drive-by shootings, or being in a dope house when it gets raided by a task force, FBI. I wouldn't have been in these situations if I would have just sat down with myself and, number one, acknowledged the truth. The truth is, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Everything about you is perfect. Everything about your hair, your skin, your shape, your size, the way you think, all the way down to your toenails. Nothing wrong with you.
So where did this enlightenment come from? At what point in your life did the light just go on? Or somebody just threw out, a life preserver to you? What happened?
I literally ran away. I ran away from my life.
Thank you, Jill.
And I don't
appreciate it.
suggest that anybody do that. And that's why I said you sit down and have a conversation with yourself. But it took me running away from my life because even after all of those things, I still was attracted to that type of guy and found myself with another guy who was selling drugs. But then as times progressed and changed, it wasn't selling drugs, which was the hot thing, but it became pimping. And the guy who I was with decided that was the lifestyle he wanted to get into. And he became a pimp. This was totally outside of my understanding of why a man would want to do this to a woman, and not necessarily why a woman want to get into this lifestyle, but my heart was always how hurt you must be to get involved in this lifestyle, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How hurt you must be to get trapped in and locked into it. And so when I found this out, it messed me up. I didn't know how to deal with it. But then there was still, because when we talk about low self-esteem, I was dealing with that because even when I found out, I still remained in the relationship for a time period, knowing that this is what this man was doing and sleeping with some of these women and also sleeping with him too. That's another form of suicide.
Right.
And when I got that revelation, I had to go.
Well, how did you get that revelation? What sparked it?
Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Jesus Christ did. Because it was through me knowing that there's something that's just not right with me. I'm hurting. And why am I not happy? None of the weed, because I was a weed smoking, choo-choo train. I smoked weed the time I woke up. I was waking up to a blunt. And I'm smoking my blunt during the day. I'm at school thinking about when I get home who I'm going to call, who want to put 5 on it. Because again, I got 5 on it. I like that song. Let's get 5 friends. Let's put 5 on a sack and let's go smoke.
And what did that do for you? That kind of was an escape?
Escape. Total escape. It numbed everything. And it also, not only was it a form of escape, but it's almost as if you put on this whole new persona. I don't need them no more. I'm this, I'm that. Everything that you feel, it was almost the antithesis of everything. So if I'm not high, I think I need him. I think I need these friends. I think I need these clothes. I think I need this. I think I need that. But when I'm high, I don't need none of y'all. I don't need nothing. Y'all need me. What you talking about? You better recognize, looking in the mirror, combing your hair. And
so it helped your swag.
Oh, man, I had super swag if I was high.
Right.
Most girls, they might lie, they want to. But, you get high, you combing your hair in the mirror, doing your hair, putting makeup on. You ain't even going nowhere. We just feel good about you for the moment. Right. Until that high come down, then you're looking for roaches to smoke some more because you want to bring it back up. Because it's this whole new persona.
You kind of slave to it. Right.
Slave to it, and...
So when you say Jesus, did somebody bring you a present? Was it a presentation you saw? Did you go to church? Or did just something just come within you and it just drew you towards the source?
It was really a combination. I say no in the sense of it wasn't someone says, you need Jesus. But it was more so of, I had gone to church before. I wasn't raised in the church. I wasn't raised in the church. I didn't even know who Jesus was, who God was until I was about 11 years old. And I was even at that point, I remember I had a pen on that said, I love Jesus. And my friend said, why do you love Jesus? I'm like, I don't love Jesus, and took it off. I love Jesus, I think. Right. So there was no real revelation even at that time. But I started, again, I was unhappy. I wasn't really happy. I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't fulfilled. And my boyfriend wasn't making me happy, and I thought he was supposed to make me happy. My parents weren't making me happy. I thought they were supposed to. I'm not making me happy. What can make me happy? And then you hear people, well, you got to go to church. Church make you feel good. So I went to church. But I would get high and go to church. Leave church, go get high. But there was something about when I read the Bible, and I tell people now, and it blows them away, but I used to read the Bible high. I'd fire my blunt, and I'd open up the Word, and I'd start reading. I have repented from that now. But I would read it, and it would be so deep to me, and it was almost as if it was calling my name. And each time,
so it was that searching that just kind of,
it was a search. It drew me.
Bible.
It drew me. And after a while, it was almost as if, what are you doing? What are you doing? If you want joy, you want peace, you want happiness, it's right here. This is it. Put away everything else. And so I literally put away everything, and just flipped 360.
Wow. So here you are today. Tell us about your life today and how did you get here?
Today, I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I am a Jesus freak, Jesus hippie, Jesus lover, Jesus. How did I get to this place? Because I saw what the power of his transforming word could do. I saw how he truly is the balm of Gilead. He's the balm of every single wound. I was someone who suffered from depression, anxiety, stress, suicide, fear, insecurities, all of these things within inside of myself. And people look at me today and they can't believe not only the things in which I shared of part of my testimony, because that's fully not even all of it, but when I share with them that I suffered from depression and couldn't even leave my bed, that I've been so stressed out and full of anxiety, having panic attacks and passing out. And the only thing that saved me was Jesus. The woman today who now has a nonprofit organization who helps young women who are like me, teaching them leadership skills, teaching them to empower themselves and develop coping skills and strategies for life. The woman today who teaches women to heal the broken little girl inside and deal with the depression, the stress, and deal with the fragmented pieces of their life through the power of the Lord Jesus Christ. A woman who's a life coach, a Christian counselor, who understands that we're human, but who also understands there's a healer. And there's strategies that can be used to be able to heal one and make someone whole.
So at what point did it come to your mind or to your spirit that you're going to start your nonprofit, that you're going to go into the field of counseling?
It was really the story in which I shared with you, that it started off just as a mission work, I guess, field work. I just had a desire to help out. And after helping out in various places, I saw a need that wasn't being fulfilled, not what it was inside of my heart. And I guess a better way of saying it is that there was a need that I saw that was not being met because God put something inside of me for a work that needed to be done. And because I was in the field and I was talking to these young women who were dealing with the same issues that I had dealt with, but were not getting the type of help that I felt that could be used, which was they need a plan. They need an exit strategy. Why bump your head so many times? It's great to hear a pep talk, but you need a strategy. I want to give you a strategy. And that was the birth of my organization. And then from there...
And what is the name of your organization?
ERI, Empowering Relationships Incorporated, ERI.org is the web address. And we help young women, to become the leaders that they naturally are supposed to walk as. Doesn't matter who you've been, where you think you've come from. We can sit down and match story for story. I may not have your story, but I know the pain, I know the feelings, and I know the emotions that are behind that story. And I also know that if I can do a 360 and change my life, so can they.
Amen.
I hope y'all enjoying yourself. It's your boy Yuckmouth. I'm just playing audio. Sit back and relax. I got you covered.
Sins growing more and more, leaving leaving folks shattered and grieved. See, the devil wanna scatter and deceive. He got no love, he'll leave you battered to bleed. Every day getting sadder, we need the love of Jesus Christ instead of another platter of weed. I pray the Lord has mercy on my soul. Sometimes I find me climbing up the ladder of greed, trying to get my script right, but the Lord said I'll be more blessed if I go ahead and scatter my seed. So I'm trying to do everything he tells me instead of saying that it really don't matter to me. See, the tongue is a boastful thing. It can
You
either
still trying
bless
to figure
or
out
be
why
full
black
of
women
chatter and
love them
deceit.
thugs.
Lord, help me say the right thing instead of hearing my mouth
Take a
running
journey
off
with
full
your
of
boy.
flattering speech. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son so that we could be saved. He died on the tree for you and me. He healed my disease and he set.
Okay, well, we're here again today by popular demand. The subject, Thug Love Exposed. And just a little recap about what we talked about last time. We talked about the attraction, a young woman's attraction to the thug. And we also discussed your testimony, which was a very powerful testimony. I mean, you had very knowledgeable insight that really blessed a lot of our viewers.
Amen.
And on today's podcast, what we want to go in is into the bullying aspect, because we had talked about that. We didn't get to go too much into that last time.
Right.
So, one thing that, I've noticed is that a lot of times I'm called to do bullying workshops. And one thing that I address is, people, listen, talk about it. But when we look at our society, we live in a society that basically praises and glorifies bullies.
Yes.
And people say, well, what do you mean by that? But when you look at the thug culture, which we've been talking about, the thugs and pimps are glamorized. I mean, a pimp is an individual that degrades a woman down to the core of her soul. I mean, basically, a pimp is a glorified slave master. But yet, you have a lot of young women running after these self-proclaimed pimps.
Yes.
I mean, what is your take on that? When you see these young women and, they have the posters of these young men, even older men that, basically putting it out there that, I'm the number one pimp.
I think it's absolutely heart-wrenching to know that you have a young woman who is vulnerable and being taken advantage of by another individual. I want to say man, but at the same time, it's much lower. He doesn't even deserve the respect or the title of being called a man. Someone who would, as you said, degrade a woman and strip her of her very essence, strip her away from her virtue, strip her down to nakedness so that he can begin to use her and manipulate her for his profit, for his gain. It's disgusting. It's absolutely despicable. And you think about the woman who's being victimized. What must be going on with inside of her spirit? What's going on with inside of her soul? For that she would allow herself to be victimized in this manner, and as you said, unfortunately, our society has been desensitized to this type of lifestyle, and it's been going on for years, for decades. Back in the day, I remember when I was in high school, we'd watch Dolomite videos and thought it was just the funniest thing. It was extremely humorous to us. We didn't look at it as this was actually someone who was beating up these young women and using, I think he used karate or something like that. I can't,
right.
But it was funny. But really what was happening, and again, this wasn't created back in the 90s when I was in school. This was created, I think, the 70s when these type of movies were big and they were playing. But again, we're talking about desensitizing people to this type of lifestyle, and then the music, and the more that you listen to it, it weaves its way into our society to where now it's absolutely everywhere. And it's actually, if you see a guy who has on a certain type of hat, instead of it being called, say, a straw hat or a Kango or whatever type of hat it is, they're going to refer to as a pimp hat. So now it's even woven its way into every fabric, literally the fabric of our society.
Now earlier I just showed you a commercial. And we're gonna play that. You know, I'm gonna play that for our audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's a real product.
That is
and the product, you know, for our audience is pimp juice. Now they sell that. Matter of fact, out here in Sacramento, out in one of the areas which is a high crime rate area. But
now you wonder if that's strategically marketed.
Right. And this is a nationwide drink.
Don't take the pimp, said you.
Right. What were your feelings on that commercial? Like I said, let's talk a little about what we saw in that commercial. Okay.
Well, first I had to watch the commercial, I think 5 times because I couldn't believe what I was actually seeing.
Right.
You know, on one hand, can I believe it? Yes, I can believe it because if you turn on the television, you turn on the radio, it's everywhere around us, you know, this type of lifestyle and it being extremely acceptable. Girls walking themselves into this lifestyle, not always needing for a guy to approach them. You even have some young women that have taken on the role of becoming the pimp and they're trying to pimp other young women.
Right.
And so it's everywhere around us. But to actually have it now, again, first let me back up, excuse me. But as I said, your hats, oh, that's a pimp hat, that's a pimp jacket.
Right.
Those are pimp shoes,
Pimp
pimp
your
socks,
ride. Pimp this
pimp
ride.
your ride. You know, and now pimp juice. Pimp
juice.
juice. I mean, it's taken over absolutely everything. And the commercial was just astonishing that is even, I mean, it's just, it's crazy.
And that's
absolutely crazy.
That's a product by Nelly. But as you see 2 pimps, you drive up.
Yes.
This young woman walking her little dog.
Dog gets run over.
The dog gets ran over.
Right.
The woman, you know, basically is right there at the window.
Mm-hmm.
The pimps roll down the window, and what happens?
He knocks her in the face.
He knocks her in the face.
And he's wearing a big giant ring.
Right.
You can't forget that. The big giant ring he's wearing.
Exactly. And at the end of the commercial, all through the commercial, you hear laughing.
Yes.
Like hysterical laughing.
Yes.
By this pimp.
Right. He's laughing, and the woman, it's a African-American man who's portrayed as the pimp, and then the woman is a Caucasian woman.
Right.
And I think that's something that should be
strategically set up.
Exactly. That should be noted. You know, and he punches her in the face and says, "Don't blame it on the pimp. Blame it on the juice."
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Are you kidding me?
And so you see a lot of young, you know, men being desensitized to what we just saw. There was domestic violence.
Exactly.
That was bullying.
Exactly.
Right, but yet, you know, when most kids watch that, I mean, a lot of kids are compelled to get the juice. Like I said, I've been in church youth groups, and they're telling me their experience drinking this juice. Like, why are you drinking? You're in the church youth group. What are you doing drinking pimp juice? And they just have like a blank stare. But like you said, it wasn't seen as a bad thing.
Right.
With this man punching this woman, you know, it was a pimp thing. You know, I remember just being in Vallejo, and I was setting up to do a workshop. This kid just walks by me arbitrarily, just says, "I'm a pimp." And just under his breath, "I'm a pimp." I said, "Excuse me?" He just looked at me and said, "Oh, I just said I'm a pimp." But see, that was a good thing, you know, and that's what we're seeing, like you say, going on in our society. And then, like you said, we're seeing domestic violence off the chart in grade schools right now. Right. Boyfriend and girlfriend relationships where you have, you know, these young men, you know, emulating the pimps like Lil Wayne and T.I. and all. You see a lot of the young women. And I'm going to show a clip where we have Beyonce on stage.
Where my little girls at? I see you.
You see these young men. And like I said, we talked about last time, they look at a beautiful woman like Beyonce, and she's yelling for a thug.
Right.
She wants a thug.
Right.
But you've seen that there's young men and there's young women, basically girls and boys are getting together. And when the girl wants to leave the boy's like, no, I'm a pimp.
That's right.
I look bad if I let you off my chain. You're gonna go back in my stable. And this is what the view
Yes.
is when in the Department of Corrections. When I'm talking to these young men at the Department of Corrections, they said we don't let these girls go anymore. I was talking to this young man from Compton. He says the new thing is we put them in our stable and we prostitute our old girlfriends. What is your take on that?
I just talked to a young woman the other day who called me because she was reaching out for help. And one of the things that she said to me, first she called me crying hysterically. My boyfriend just broke up with me. I said, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And she began telling me the story about her and her boyfriend. The story goes on, and she says how the day before they broke up, he had slapped her, hit her, knocked her head against the window because she was looking at another man, young man, mind you, because these are teens. And, you know, the guy who she was looking at, you know, made the comment, what'd you hit her for? What was up with that? And he was like, oh, this is my work. This is mine.
Wow.
Not
Just
my
an object.
girlfriend.
An object.
Yes, an object. Not my woman, not my lady, but this is my work.
Wow.
Her perception of the relationship is that this is my boyfriend. And his is, no, this is my work. And that goes back to exactly what you're saying. You know, and what some of these girls don't realize is that they're being preyed upon. This young lady is in foster care. And you have a lot of young girls who are in those types of situations, in foster care, in group homes, and they're running away. They're getting hooked up with boyfriends. And these boyfriends are just priming them.
Right.
Just getting them ready so that they can get them out on the streets. That's the next step. And they don't realize that this is what's happening to them. And then, as you said, too, we look at bullying, we look at domestic violence. And if you go back to bullying, it's a big thing. It's serious. And I get that. And I agree with every show that does they do a segment on it, from Dr. Phil down to anyone else who does something, who do segments on it. But they're only showing one aspect of the bullying issue. This is a whole nother area of bullying that needs to be addressed. We're talking about these boys who are beating up these girls, and yes, it's domestic violence, but they're also have, the bullying aspect to it, because they're punking these girls, and they are putting them in situations to where, they feel as if there's no escape for them, that they have nowhere to turn, because they've now been almost like they're pinned up inside of a corner. They have no one to turn to, and the guys are even threatening them.
Right. Now, do you have a personal experience with bullying? Maybe you yourself or a friend that was a victim of a bully, maybe a boyfriend bully?
I do. And again, the why I do the work in which I do, so many different times we wonder when we're going through different situations, God, why am I going through this? Or even when we look back, sometimes we forget that, God's hand is always on our lives. And he says that he'll never leave us nor forsake us, and that everything can be used. And there were different times in my life where I can understand, why did some of these things happen to me, and why did God allow it? And now here I am sitting with you, and I have the opportunity to share different pieces of my story, of my testimony, that I pray can bless someone. And when it comes to domestic violence and bullying, I was in a relationship. I was 17 years old with a guy, again, talking about that thug mentality. He was a Crip. He thought he was big and bad, and I was attracted to him. He had never shown any signs of aggression towards me. And I want to, make sure that that's like clarified, you know what I'm saying? Not aggression towards me.
Right.
And so I saw him as being somebody who could protect me. I'm only 5'2", and he's about 6'1". So again, he's a protector is what I saw it. And he was cute and had the swag and the look and everything that I was interested in. But then one day, because again, that type of lifestyle, you're drinking, you're smoking, and he's drinking and he's smoking, and we're hanging out. I had to leave to go to work, and something snapped in him. He thought I was wanting to leave him. And there was someone else who was actually in the room as well too. And that's something that I think, unfortunately, when a girl is being victimized and being physically abused, that the friends don't step in all the time, and they should. And in this situation, the friend who was there did not. And this guy took me by my hair, and slammed my head up against a couch. And it was a really old couch, the corner of the couch, so it was a wooden, and there was blood everywhere.
Wow.
And I found myself, and it's the first time anyone had ever laid their hands on me in this kind of way. And I remember running to the bathroom thinking, if I could crawl out of a window, how can I get out of here? I've got to leave. I have to escape. And he apologized, and I believed him that he was sorry. He says, I'll take you home. And in the car, we're going home, and he takes me home. And we get to my house, and he actually kicks in my door and commences to hit on me some more. And for years, I had a bruise in the middle of my forehead from where he knocked me in my forehead and kept pounding my head so hard where I literally felt myself gasping for air and going in and out of consciousness.
Wow.
I did press charges, and I left the relationship, and that was the end of that. And that was the last time I found myself in that type of situation. And
But that's good, you press charges.
I did. And I cannot say, Ray, I wish I could say that was the last time I dated a guy who fit that fit inside of that thug image. And
what is this? It's kind of like a lot of these young women feel like they're gonna co-reign the streets with this thug. Like they're not gonna attack me, even though they see them, acting aggressively towards others. They just have, that fantasy. Well, that's not gonna be me.
No,
we're partners.
I never saw it as being me because I was someone who. I'm his woman.
Right.
He's going to take care of me. Whatever he does that in the street. That has nothing to do with me. I'm someone that he wants to love and he wants to protect. He wants to make sure that I'm okay. He loves me. This young lady who I talked to on the phone the other day, and that's what this boy was telling her. I love you. You're the only one. And it's not true. And that's what a lot of these, I want to say younger women and women too. Because, Ray, unfortunately, it's not just teens who are being victimized in this way. But it's adult women. It's women who 25, 30, 35, 40, and even 50.
Right.
Who still find themselves caught up inside of this violent cycle. Because, again, when we're talking about this type of we're talking about a thug lifestyle, but this thug lifestyle is multifaceted. It has other dimensions inside of it. And as you just said, we're talking about a thug lifestyle when you have the dimension of bullying, we have the dimension of domestic violence, we have the gangs, we have all these different facets of it. And so when we look at, say, again, this glorification of the pimps, that's not only targeting to our young kids, but that's targeted to our college age, our young adults, and the adults, period, because you have grown men who still want to walk around and think that they a pimp and they got women and that this is okay, that it's acceptable, because unfortunately there's a segment of our society that does say it's acceptable, and so now they're bringing that home, and so you have grown women who are finding themselves going down, who are married, getting tested for HIV and AIDS, and coming up with they're positive.
And it seems like the common denominator is they all like I said, you ask them what the musical selection is.
Yes.
It's the thug.
Yes.
But why is that? Why is these women, and like I said, we talked before about music and the brain and what Fortune 500 companies know, that music has the power, to basically enter an individual's subconscious, their right brain. During the awake hours and during the sleep cycle, is able to reprogram one's beliefs without them even knowing it.
Right.
Because like you said, when you sit down, and when I sat down and shown these women the lyrics of the artists that they say they love, and when they really read it, and not grooving to the beat, grooving to the rhythm, but looking at the words, it's almost like a light turns on. Why do you like this? Is this okay? Would you like this individual reading this to you without any beat or rhythm? Well, of course not. If somebody, Joe Blow down the street just came and read this to you, you'd probably slap them. They agree.
Exactly.
But yet, I just like it because of the beat and the rhythm. It's like, well, basically, in essence, what they're saying is that I'm going to sell out my self-respect for a beat, for a rhythm, you know. And when you get them to see that, like I said, get them to think about what they're thinking about, because, like I said, their children, their daughters are watching, you know, the behavior. And that's why one thing that we do, people say, you talk about the music too much. I say, I don't talk about the music enough.
Right.
How do we learn our ABCs? Through the music. Music is one of the most powerful learning tools. How did Hitler organize his regime? Music played a big part in that.
Right.
So what is your take? Why are these, you know, why is it that, I mean, it's like they're spellbound to
Well,
this.
right, you can't, and I don't mean to overtalk you, but something that you said a moment ago was, you know, I'm willing to sell my self-respect, my soul, who I am, for what it is that I'm listening to and what it is I see. I can't sell nothing that I don't have. If I don't have self-esteem, if I don't have self-worth, if I have no self-value, if I don't have a perception of who I am, what my value is, then how can I actually even begin to consciously make that connection that I'm selling myself? You can tell me that I'm selling myself and it sounds good, and it's a message that really sounds extremely good, and especially if you, in the deliverer, who delivers the message. But if that person, and again, we're talking about, I don't care if it's a teen or an adult, because you have a lot of adults who have jaded perspectives because of their tawdry past and that they haven't healed from. And so if I haven't healed from my yesterday yet, then I'm still looking. I might have an adult body, but I'm still looking out of the lenses of that 15, 16-year-old young woman or young man. And so therefore, if my self-image is still fragmented and I haven't been healed and made whole yet, then when you bring me a message of self-respect and I'm selling myself, there's no connection. There's a huge disconnect. And then we're also talking about a $12 billion industry.
Right.
And they're pushing this message in every single direction. And so if there's no connection inside of me, and here's this machine that's coming at me that's saying, you look good, and you only look good if you dress this way, if you walk this way, if your hips swing this way, and if you listen to this type of music, this is what makes you be socially accepted. This is how you gain significance. This is how you can value who you are as an individual. Well, now here it is. This thing that they're pumping into their ears constantly, they're constantly putting it before their eyes, the gatekeeper of their soul. And so if I'm constantly putting this thing in front of my eyes and it's telling me this is what I should be interested in, this is actually who you are, that's going to win.
So how do you start the healing process? Because like I said, this is a deadly epidemic.
Yes, it is.
A lot of young women are dying. We've had guys get out of our institution. You know, we've had these women just, you know, in this, like I say, demonic soul tie.
Yes.
You know, where I just remember some of these guys on the phone, you know, you ain't going to the prom. No, you staying at home. Matter of fact, I got the homies watching you. These guys are doing years in the, you know, like I said, years in prison.
Right.
But yet they're saying they still have a control hold. Here's this young girl that maybe was attracted, you know, to that, you know, that whole thug swag.
Yes.
But now they're in bondage. I can't tell you how many women, not just young women, but older women that say, man, if I would have just known. Now they're in bondage now to this individual. Now this individual, this thug is out here just sleeping with all types of other women, but he's making sure, as he calls it, this woman stays in my stable.
Right.
You know, I've known young women that have been killed by thugs. I have a cousin out of mine in South Central Los Angeles. She had told me that she's walking down the street and this guy asked for her phone number. She says, no, I don't want to give it to you. He pulls out an Uzi gun and puts it to her head. Give me your phone number. You see, so this is like an epidemic. So we got to talk about it. And I think, like you said, it comes down to a lot of when young women wouldn't put themselves in these type of situations. Like I said, if there was some healing going on, if there was some awareness, and you know, how do you plant that self-respect into a young woman? And see, a lot of these young women come from good homes. These aren't just single parent homes that we're talking about. And you see, a lot of times that's the myth.
Yes.
They come from single parent homes. These women have been abused. That's not always the case. Because I know a young lady that came from a Christian home. Mm-hmm. You know, a well-to-do Christian home that was killed in the Bay Area by her boyfriend, a thug boyfriend. And she was raised in the church. You know, nice young lady, but just attracted to that whole persona.
We're talking about a movement, if you will, that crosses every demographic, every socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care what race or religion. It doesn't care about any of these things whatsoever. You know, and when we talk about what is it that we can do, and I like what you said because it's absolutely true, you know, about it doesn't matter if it's a single parent household, because that's what people would want to believe. You know, well, look at the family that she came from. Look at the friends that she chose to hang around with. Look at, you know, the schools that she went to. Look at the way that she dressed. You know, all of these, that's not all the time what we're looking at. You know, sometimes, yes, unfortunately, there are some girls who have not yet been given the proper skill set, who, you know, that's another practical steps that need to be taught to that group of girls. But it doesn't matter. You know, unfortunately, when we're talking about this epidemic, every child is at risk. Every person is at risk, because again, we're talking about something that doesn't care about demographics, socioeconomic status. Doesn't matter. It's all about trying to make sure that it's out to steal, kill, and destroy. Can it get you? And if we're not keeping our eyes open, if we're not paying attention, and if we're not honest with ourselves about really where we are, and really, really, really saying, okay, you know what, I want to do different. I want to be different, and making the steps toward that. Because we live in a society right now where you have some people that would say that it's a guy who puts a girl into, again, we're talking about that, the prostitution, the pimping thing, that it's a guy who would put that girl out there, that it's a lot of mind control that's going on. You have a lot of young ladies that have put themselves out on the streets.
That's true. That's true.
I read a story not too long ago from a young lady down in the Bay Area, 15, Ray, 15, who went to some other friends of hers and said, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I got to get paid. I got to make me some money. And so she started prostituting herself out and was getting beat up, wasn't really getting nowhere. So her friends told her, I know a guy you should talk to, and turned her on to this other pimp. And so she connects with this pimp, and now he has her out in the street. If it wasn't for a uncle, I believe, who saw his niece butt naked in an ad on Craigslist, she might not be with us today.
Wow.
You have young ladies that are putting other young girls, as I said earlier, out there. So we have to break the stereotypical line of thinking that we have when we're looking at bullying, prostitution, domestic violence, and what that really is, and really begin to look at what practical steps, what types of practical application can we use to begin to build these young women up. If you're talking about a young woman who has been victimized in this lifestyle, she's been traumatized.
Right.
She's been traumatized. And what may work for one girl, it's not a one size fits all. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You know, we're talking about people who might start suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. It's people who might suffer from anxiety, depression, who might suffer from all kind of different type of psychosis. And so we have to begin to actually look at what types of therapy can we begin to implement for these young ladies, that we can truly engage them to get them the type of help that we can to integrate them back into society, that they feel good about who they are, building a sense of and that their virtue can be replaced, because Ray, your virtue can be replaced.
That's well said. Well said. Wow. You know, we look at, like you said, what are some things maybe some parents, do you feel some parents need to know? Because like you said, we talked about how parents sometimes can be conditioning, without them even knowing it, conditioning their, their children to have an affinity towards this lifestyle. like you said, we're talking about the music. We're talking about video games. You know, Grand Theft Auto. You know, I remember talking with the guys at the institution about this, and they got all excited about this game. And they were talking about, man, Johnson, you get to have a shootout with your enemies, you get to have a shootout with the police. And then one of them mentioned something that really shocked me. He said, you get a download to where you can have a prostitute. I'm like, you a prostitute? He says, you take her out into the cuts. I was like, you take her out into the cuts? He says, you handle your business with her. He says, then you kill her. And you get hood points for that. Now, they sell this game, Carrie, at Toys R Us.
Yeah.
You know, but these are things that are in people's households. Christians even have these in their households. And a lot of them say it's just a game.
Again, we have to change our whole perception. We've got to take on a brand new paradigm. We have to completely change the way that we think at things, the way we look. Yeah, it might have been just a game some years ago, but it's not just a game anymore. It might have just been a movie years ago, but it's not just a movie anymore.
And speaking of that, not to interrupt you, but
that's okay.
They said that game, Grand Theft Auto, the movie Titanic, #1 DVD sales, I think, in history. Grand Theft Auto game sales outsold the Titanic.
I want to say it's unbelievable, but at the same time, I can see how that is, unfortunately. I can see how that is. Again, look at the machine that they're going up against without realizing exactly what's being done to them spiritually, what's being done to them emotionally. The emotional state of these individuals who are watching this. You're being repeatedly shown murders. You're being repeatedly shown, and you are enacting these things. So now when you feel, when you're angry, you're in a state of rage and full aggression. You mean to tell me you're ready to just go sit and have a seat? Let's talk about this. I want to engage you in conversation so we can discuss our problems and do some, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
That's not going to happen.
No.
You're going to go way past that.
Right. There's a conditioning process going on.
Right.
And I remember even being in, teaching an anger management class at Department of Corrections. And it's like anger management class isn't going to work for an individual if they see anger as a good thing. And a lot of them would see anger as a good thing, right?
Right.
It's like, you're trying to have me do what? Anger management? Anger is how I get people to be afraid of me.
Right.
Anger is how I get, my prostitutes to, be on the streets for me. It's like, you take away my anger, you take away my power.
Right.
You see? So you have a lot of people saying, well, we need all these different resource groups and things like that. But if you don't go to the core, to the root of it, and bring awareness, and show these individuals that this is a self-destructive lifestyle that you're involved in.
Right.
So that's the first thing that I would deal with, on my caseload was, okay, let's look at the big picture here.
That's right.
And that's what you have to do. And like I said, then the next thing you got to do is you got to touch the conscience.
That's right.
If you don't touch the conscience, ain't nothing going to change.
That's right. And I absolutely agree with you, Ray, on that. Because if I can bring some awareness and begin to actually provide some information, some knowledge to you, I don't care all the conflict resolution, anger management that you do, it's not going to do anything. It's just another message. And they're just passing time, waiting till they're finished with that class and they can go on and take their next. Can you sign off on this so I can get my certificate, whatever it is that I need to do? That's it and that's all. And again, especially when you're talking about someone who around them, they're constantly pumping violence into their system. If I'm constantly pumping this type of violence inside of me, it's going to take more than just that. But you said it. I got to be able to speak to their conscience. I got to be able to get into them, into their heart, into their soul, and begin to build and begin to discuss the issues that are really plaguing them deep within inside, and deal with the root issues, the root causes. Pull those things up. Right. And now we can actually get someplace.
I remember being on this one unit, and it was a unit where it was just really loud. It was like the jail within the jail, where they're yelling and screaming back at each other. disrespecting each other. The gangs are disrespecting each other. I mean, just loud all day. But I remember one day it got kind of quiet. But yeah, I remember there's this one individual still screaming and kicking and yelling and hitting his door. And I went over to him. I said, "Bro, ain't nobody even saying anything to you. What are you doing? Why don't you just go to sleep?" But we engaged in a conversation, and he told me, he says, "Johnson, when it's quiet, I hate it." And I said, "Why do you hate it?" He says, "Because when it's quiet, I think."
Wow.
And I said, "What do you think about?" He said, "I think about all the evil I've done." He says, "I think about all the women I've violated." I mean, he just started really just opening it up. He says, "And I don't like myself." He says, "When I'm on the street, I could smoke weed, I could drink, I could listen to some music, I could be at a party. I don't have to think about it. But on this lockup unit, I don't have that option." I remember asking him, I said, "Well, why did you get into the gang? Why did you get into this lifestyle in the first place?" He said, "Out of respect. I wanted people to respect me." And I said, "Well, let's just test that theory." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Does anything that you do in this lifestyle, in your gang, does it violate your conscience?" When I ask these individuals, they all tell me, "Yeah, of course it violates my conscience." Well, how do you handle that? I smoke weed and, just do something to take my mind off it. Then I'll ask them this question. I said, "Would you say it's fair enough to say that your conscience and your self-respect is one and the same?" "What do you mean by that?" I said, "If I could spin you up and pressure you to do something that would go against your conscience, would I make you violate your self-respect?" And they always tell me, "Yeah." But I make sure they say it. I said, "Well, wait a second, hold on. You just told me you got involved in this lifestyle in this gang for respect." They said, "That's right. But you just told me just now that what you do in this lifestyle in your gang violates your self-respect." "Oh, what do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, can you see that you're living a lie? Here you are trying to get respect from others for something that you're doing that disrespects your own self. So how can you be in a lifestyle for respect when what you do in this lifestyle violates your self-respect?" And that's what a lot of young men do. Because when I ask them, does pimping violate your conscience?
Right.
Of course it does.
Exactly.
They'll say, "Does hitting a woman violate your conscience?" Of course it does. How do you deal with it? "I smoke weed and I drink." That's why you see them on these videos smoking weed and drinking all the time, because that's the only thing that could give them that peace. But it's a counterfeit peace that we know.
Exactly. And it's sad that they have no real peace, and that they actually have to use another substance to be able to have some type of peace, because of what they're doing is completely violates everything that they know. Because they wouldn't, if somebody was doing that to a younger sister, a niece, a cousin, their mom, it'd be a different story. But they in turn will do that to someone else's daughter, to someone else's niece, to someone else's mother, and have no problem with it as they're doing that, because for the monetary gain, for what it's doing to them, it's increasing their profit, their bottom line. And what I find to be absolutely amazing, Ray, is that the criminal activity in which they partake of, if they use that same skill set, where would they be at if they use that in another way? If they put that forward, with inside of their education. Developing themselves, the different natural skills and abilities that they have.
And they will have a peace with it. Because I said, you cannot live a life of peace and joy violating your conscience. You just can't do it. I said a real man, a real woman lives their life according to their God-given conscience. Same with young women, right? Is that music that you're listening to, is that violating your conscience? If they listen to it, they will say yes. So, well, in essence, you're violating your own self-respect. This is why you got to have happy hour. This is why people have to say, "Well, I need a drink." Because a lot of times, I'm not saying everybody that does that, but a lot of them, they're living a lifestyle that is in conflict with their God-given conscience. And see, once people realize that, and you would be surprised, a lot of these gang members, when I brought that to their attention, how the next day they want a self-help book. Because now they realize that they're living a lie. Because all this time they thought it was the truth, and it wasn't.
Well, I believe that because if you go to a church on any given Sunday where you have someone who's speaking a message as powerful as this, and there's an altar call, how many people actually come up to the altar? How many men, how many young women, they come up because they want to repent.
Right.
They want to turn their lives around because, again, their conscience has been touched. Their heart has been pricked. And they don't like what they're doing.
Right.
But there's no one there who's showing them that they care. But outside of just this initial stuff, as you just said, they pick up this self-help book and then they want to read more. That goes back to the practical application. What's the follow-up?
Right.
Because it's not just this one-time message of deliverance.
Good point.
But what's the follow-up process look like? And is that follow-up process so far out of reach and out of touch that there's no way that they feel that they can even do that? You have a lot of kids who, unfortunately, in this day and age, who drop out of school in 8th grade, have an 8th grade education. Some of them can hardly read. And so what do they turn to? They turn to gangs, they turn to streets, they turn to hustling. Because they're going to get paid.
Right.
They got to take care of themselves and don't let them start having babies. Some of them might take care of 1 or 2 babies, but then they might start just trying to help out with populating the earth.
And then you got the cycle just repeat itself.
It's repeating itself.
Right.
And so they feel bad for what they do. Some of them, I truly believe that because I've talked to some. And they don't like the lifestyle that they're caught up in, but they don't see another way out.
Exactly. A lot of them,
they don't see a way out.
People think they just want to act like that, but they really don't. They really do want to change.
They want to change, and they don't see a way out. And then you have so many people who, unfortunately, snub them, look their noses down on them. That part of society, that group of people, they need to be eliminated. And all the other types of conversations, which you hear, unfortunately, some people, if you listen and you can overhear them.
Yeah, even in the music, some of these rappers, like, you talking about Tupac, you can tell that even their conscience was troubled.
Yes.
And they, like I said, they want to do the right thing. DMX, even in his lyrics, you see that message where there's a conflict, a war going on within their conscience, where they really do, a lot of them really do want that peace,
Yes.
They want to have peace with their conscience.
They're looking for ways.
Right, because God puts that within us. God puts a conscience inside us that when we violate it, there's an alarm that sounds which gives us a dis-peace.
Yeah, and
unrest.
I really, what you're saying is I'm like connecting with you and I'm getting a little excited, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking of the young women too.
Right.
Same thing. Because we have society that's telling them, jump on the poles we talked about in the last video.
Exactly.
You can strip, but then again, if we're talking about prostitution, and I want to emphasize that it's not always this guy who's going out, clubbing this girl on the head and snatching her and saying, you finna be my hoe, and I'll put you on a strip.
That's true.
That's not always the case.
Right.
You have girls who willingly put themselves out there. You have other women who are putting other girls out there on the streets.
Well, you look at Foxy Brown and Little Kim.
Yeah.
They're promoting that type of behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Be independent. Get out there, women, and get your own hustle. Be your own, pimp.
Well, and now you have Nicki Minaj, and you have women who are looking at these women, and this is what they're seeing, and they're saying, okay, well, I can be that pimp type of woman. I can go out and get men, and I can take them for all their money. Men do it all the time. What's wrong with it? I can go and I can get men, and I can pill them for their money, have them buy me purses, have them buy me handbags, have them buy me clothes, and become a high-priced, prostitute. And then you have the young women who are women. I want to say women, because we're talking about young girls who do this, and then you have women who do this as well too. And they feel that they're not, a prostitute or a hoe,
right?
Because they're not there on the streets. But it's like, well, I got news for you.
Right.
Anytime there's an exchange that's going on, there's an expectation that you're going to pay one way or another, then that's still that same type of spirit of prostitution that's going on. It's the same thing. You just ain't walking up and down the street.
That's right.
It's the only difference. You trying to get your rent paid. You trying to get some new shoes. You trying to get some milk for your baby, food for your baby, and again, some of them, they just trying to go shopping. I'm just looking for somebody to give me some money so I can go shopping, or somebody take me shopping, and there's a happy ending for him at the end of this trip.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Exactly.
You know,
well said. Well said. You know, now Carrie, wrapping this up. You know, what is the solution? I know, like you said, we say it's case by case for different people, but just in a nutshell, you know, in general, you know, if you just had to speak to our whole audience, what is the core message, some core principles that, you know, can help a young woman build some self-respect that maybe doesn't have self-respect or is hurting, that needs some healing? What would you recommend to that young woman, that young girl out in our audience today?
I would let them know that there is somebody that loves them. I would let them know that there's somebody that cares. That the feelings of insecurity, rejection, the fear, the depression, the self, feeling as if nobody loves them, that nobody cares, that there is somebody who does. There is somebody that says, even if your mother and father forsake you, that I won't.
Amen.
But knowing that there is someone who does care for them, and God will never, ever, ever leave us. And even if our earthly parents, earthly friends, and family, they seemingly are not as attached to us as we would like them to be or want them to be, we can't blame them. We have to be able to forgive and understand that everybody has their own journey and that we have to be responsible for our own. That as long as there's breath inside of our bodies, that means that there's hope for tomorrow. There's always joy within inside the next day. So that first step is understanding that that is true. It's not just a message. It's not something that just sounds good on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night. But it actually is the gospel truth. And having that understanding and then going a step further and then saying, okay, you know what? I am worth it. I'm worth this life that I've been given. I do mean something. I do have value. There are different things that I'm gifted at, and there's somebody out there who will appreciate me for just who I am, that you don't have to change. You don't have to fit into a society that says you need to look a certain way. Just the way you are is fine. You're perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the way you think, nothing in the way that you speak. There's nothing wrong with anything about you. And moving past that, I would say that to begin to encourage themselves and encouraging themselves by one, God gave us 31 Proverbs. There's 31 days in a month. Today's the 10th, so you read Proverbs 10. Tomorrow's the 11th. Read Proverbs 11. But prior to reading, ask God, you know what? I just need some insight. I need wisdom. I need understanding. You said if I ask that you'd give it to me. Show me who I am. Show me a path. Show me a way. Lead me into your truth. And then asking God to lead other people to support them on their journey. I know it works because God sent people to support me on my journey. That's why I am here today. And now God places different people on my heart to call them just to say, hey, how you doing? Or he's so amazing. You'll go to the grocery store and you'll run right into somebody. And at that very moment, you're just who they needed to see to give them a hope. And somebody will give you the hope in which you need. But you have to remember that tomorrow is promised for you. And that there's joy in tomorrow.
Powerful. Well, thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
It's your boy Yuckmouth. Amen, my sister. Amen. Well, I'm gonna call it. I'll holler at y'all later on. If you're a new subscriber, click the like, subscribe. Peace.